Welcome, dearest retainers, to Court of Blades, and welcome to Valloward, the greatest city in this or any other age. A city where hearts race and swords flash, where intrigue and danger lie around every corner. Centuries ago, celebrated veterans were given title to Valor Isle, a place long abandoned by its first residents. Here, the heroes found ancient secrets, bountiful land, and a fruit bearing oracular gifts. Generations later, 6 families vie for ultimate control of this jewel of the archipelago, each seeking to lead the great dance of houses. A new retinue rises to clash with flashing blades, veiled plots, and powerful magics in pursuit of their house's interests and their own secret ambitions. Speculate presents Valloward, a Court of Blades campaign, starring Premee Mohamed, Marie Bilodeau, Brandon O'Brien, Gregory A. Wilson, and your dancing master, Michael R. Underwood. Be welcome, retainer. Get comfortable, but not too comfortable. It's time for Court of Blades.
Boom, 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 boom. What's going on, everybody? I am a fan of that video. That is an awesome video done by the Drakes, the makers of Court of Blades, and it is our great pleasure, who are our sponsor for this. And it is my great pleasure to welcome everybody. Hello, Arvanauts. Welcome all to a July 29th, Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern stream. I hope you folks had a lovely week. It's been a hot week in much of the world, so I hope you've been able to stay cool, and you are settling in for what will be a hot session tonight of Court of Blades, sort of a session 0.5, if you will, of the next stage before we get rolling here with our Speculate event. Before I go any further, just a couple of quick notes about the channel in general. If you like what you see and hear tonight, please make sure to follow the channel. Please check out our YouTube at !ArvTube, Discord is !ArvCord, Twitter is !ArvTweets, website is arvanelleron.com. Financially, !Arv Shop for the merchandise area, !Arv Treon for my Patreon. Subbing to the channel is always appreciated. But most of all tonight, !Speculate, where you can gather information about our Speculate actual play podcast, and most important, where you might be able to go and support our Speculate Patreon, because we have one of those, which allows us to support the making of shows like this, and we'd love to be able to do more of those if we can get the funding for it. So the Speculate Patreon is available to you, and !Speculate would be able to give you the information you need for that. Otherwise, I am going to just mention one last thing, which is that this, of course, is happening tonight. Tomorrow night, we have got the premiere of Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks, sponsored by Alligator Alley Entertainment, and that will be myself, along with Kat Rambo and Johnny Pittman and Zach Clay and Toya Kristen Finley. Very excited to be able to introduce you folks to that new world as well. So we have several premieres going on over the course of the next couple of weeks, and then next week is Gen Con, so I'm going to be very excited for that, so please make sure that you note that on your schedule. You folks know all about the different publishing stuff, Icarus, Grayshade, of course, and Library, but also don't forget about BLM, Black Lives Matter, very important to affirm and assert the significance and importance of Black lives, Help Now, the World Health Organization page on suicide prevention, very important to reach out to others when you need help and to reach out to others when they need help as well, and Ukraine, Ukraine, to help the Ukrainians fight back against an illegal and illegitimate war that is devastating their country and their lives. This is a small way, but still a significant way for all of its small size. Very important nonetheless to be able to stand out and help them fight back. So with all of that said, I am going to, because I'm just running production and playing today, jump on over to the stream. I'm going to apologize to the players for interrupting them, which I'm sure I did because I can't hear them. And then I'm going to unmute them. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to head over to reveal to you what right here is our, that's right, there we go. I had to put the Twitch chat up. There is our incredible set of players -1. We have one person missing, but I'm going to let Mike introduce and explain all of that as we are here. But I do want you all to feast your eyes for just a moment on the Court of Blades overlay that you see before you. You will note the fanciness, the flowers. This was all art that I did in my spare time. No, this is nothing to do with me at all. This is completely the Drakes who did this as well. So our sponsor for this campaign here on Speculate have done such a spectacular job with this stuff all around the edges, the overlays, the video, and all that. So thank you to the Drakes. This is great stuff. And now I'm going to shut up and I'm going to hand it over to our amazing dancing master for this evening, and that is one Michael R. Underwood, who is right there on your screen. Mike, I will hand it over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm just moving my arm so I don't completely wreck my mic, which would be very sad. Yeah, I'm Michael R. Underwood, aka Mike. I'm one of the 3 co-hosts of Speculate, along with Arv/Greg and Brandon. And I'm going to be the GM/dancing master for our game of Court of Blades, Valloward. Court of Blades is designed by A Couple of Drakes, which is the partnership of Shawn and Navi Drake. So I want to make sure to shout them out. Do we have a specific Court of Blades?
We do, I think. It might
command that will link to the chat.
I think we do. I think is it exclamation point? I know Rude knows in chat. Is it exclamation point court or exclamation point blades? I know we did one.
Court of Blades.
Court. There we go.
So
yeah, I knew there was something.
Yep. So you can get to the document to buy the PDF from the backer kit. And if you go to the couple of Drakes .itch.io today on Friday the 29th, because it's a creator day, you can buy everything on a huge list of designs by a couple of Drakes for $99, which is a great deal. That is going to be Court of Blades, the 2 kind of companion / extra zines, and then a bunch of other games that they've done. So you can check that out if you are a person who, like me, collects many, many RPGs like a dragon with their horde. So yeah, tonight is our session 0 for Court of Blades. We had previously done a world building game. One of our players is experiencing a like neighborhood scale internet outage. So I'm trying to communicate with Marie about whether Marie is going to be able to be in the chat or participate in any way, shape, or form tonight. I'm hoping that she will be able to. And I think we're going to proceed and do everything that we can. And then I'm going to communicate with Marie kind of outside of this session and make sure that everything is cool. Marie has already contributed to the world building from the world building game that we did. I generally do not like the idea of doing a session 0 without all of the players, but it is very difficult to get all of these folks scheduled in the same place at once. So I would like to proceed as much as we can this evening. As a quick overview, the plan is to review our kind of content notes, basically the results of a version of a digital consent checklist that I used sending to each of the players, which is one that I learned about because Brandon used it for their game Fractal Spire for the players to talk through. And so we're going to go over what will effectively become our lines and veils, but we're using kind of red, yellow, green, where there is stuff that won't be in the game at all, stuff that's totally fine to be in the game, and then the middle ground is stuff where we're going to check in or we're going to like tread lightly on it, where if it's like, oh, okay, I think we may be heading in a direction where X happens, we as players and as co-storytellers are going to try to flag that for one another and to remind one another to flag that when it comes up. You know, this checklist has a bunch of different stuff on it, so we probably will need to collaborate to look out for one another on this. We'll do as best we can, and I will basically take this list that I have, and it's going to become a generally available document for everyone to refer to. So we're going to talk about content that will feed into tone, where we're going to say, what about Court of Blades, like the way that Court of Blades is kind of written and what we might be able to do with it. What are people excited about? Where do we want to focus? Are we more interested in the kind of BBC Three Musketeers, like combat-y, adventure-y, camaraderie part? Are we more interested in like a Medici, warring families, intrigue, betrayal, divided loyalties part? Are we more interested in like some magic part with also some sword fighting? And like, you know, there's kind of a palette in the game as written, and then we have stuff that we've developed from world building, and we're going to figure out where people are most excited and then make choices of what house we're going to serve, and then the characters themselves that will set us up to be able to kind of deliver on these aesthetic interests that we're all going to be discussing tonight. So that will then lead into the character sheet stuff, where instead of a crew sheet, we have a coterie sheet, which kind of represents this group, this retinue of servants, a kind of elevated and valued servants to one of these great houses, and then the characters themselves, who are going to draw from one of a few playbooks. So
good stuff.
With that, I'm going to invite our players to introduce themselves so that anyone who is watching and doesn't already know these lovely folks can get to know them. And we'll probably end with a quick reintroduction from Greg. So Brandon, if you'd like to go first, please let folks know who you are and what you do.
Hello everybody, it is me, Brandon O'Brien, pronouns he, him, or they, them, coming to you live from still very hot Trinidad and Tobago, where it is presently 26 degrees Celsius. I am one of the other co-hosts of the podcast Speculate, alongside Michael R. Underwood and Gregory A. Wilson. I am a poet, game designer, and science fiction and fantasy writer from Trinidad and Tobago, and I am very excited to play a game instead of GM1. So I'm very excited to discover more of Court of Place, because it's actually been really fun. Digging into the world building has been very engaging for me personally. Doing lots of island shenanigans in the world building, so I'm very excited to pay off all of those island shenanigans and play as we get into the actual action. So yeah, that's me.
I guess I'm next. I'm Premee Mohamed. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a novelist and short story writer. I recently won a Nebula, which was super exciting, and I'm, thank you, recently also up for British Fantasy Awards and a World Fantasy Award, which I just found out about last week, so since we last played. I'm also an assistant editor and social media manager at the wonderful short science fiction venue Escape Pod, and we will be opening back up for submissions this fall, so please send us your stuff.
Excellent. So I'm Michael R. Underwood. I write found family, adventure, science fiction, and fantasy. I'm reissuing my urban fantasy series this summer. And today I published my very first TTRPG, a fun one-page RPG called The Only Logical Solution is Hijinks, which is a kind of Star Trek pastiche of very serious characters in very silly situations. And you can find that at michaelrunderwood.itch.io. I also stream games at twitch.tv/turbotango. And now over to our host, Greg.
So for those of you who have no idea who this clown is that is now currently speaking to you, people should know me at this point, I hope. I am Gregory Wilson. I am Arvin Elleron on this channel, and I am a college professor and an author of speculative fiction. My newest project, which just funded within the last few weeks, is Greyshade, which I was very excited about, which is the next two books in that series, Renegade and Heretic, and a 5e RPG, Greyshade, which is going to be coming out next year, and there may or may not be someone sitting in very close proximity to me, virtually speaking, on the screen that may be heavily involved with that, as you are going to hear more about as time goes on. But I'm very excited about that. And speaking of Escape Pod, the audiobook narrator for that is going to be Trent Sparks, and Trent does all kinds of stuff with Escape Pod. So yeah, so it's all good, as they say. I also want to call everyone's attention very quickly to, many people on my channel will know that I keep my own Patreon info usually up on the screen, but what I have done tonight is to put the Speculate Patreon info up there. And if you're looking at that right below the Twitch chat and you're like, 8 patrons, 22 per month, you're like, wow, first of all, how do I support this Patreon? And secondly, how do I make it so that that number increases? I'm glad you asked, Phantom person who said that, because if you go over to patreon.com/speculate, you can get access to behind the scenes chats. You can get access to bonus episodes. You can even get some access sometimes to things like Mike's GM prep, I should say, and things like that, and other goodies. And we are very excited to be able to bring this show to you. But candidly, it would be really helpful if we had a little bit more support. I'm not saying from you, but just in the world in general, more financial support would make it possible for us to do more. And so if you are like, how do I get more involved? If you type in chat !speculate, as Rudinell just did, or go over to patreon.com/speculate, you will be able to do that. We are starting to push out various partnerships that we have, sponsorships like the one that we have with the Drakes and so on. But we'd love to be able to even increase the amount that we can do and pay, for example, our amazing audio editor, Rudy Basso, who edits the audio side of this. So just wanted to highlight that for folks that is what that number is. And I'd love to see that number go up over the course of the evening if we can. And that's me.
Okay, so what we're going to do, as I discussed a little bit, is we're going to talk through some content notes and some preferences of kind of material in the game where we have the, like, oh, okay, we know that we're not going to do X and Y, but we have a yellow on Z. How are people feeling about Z? That kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of like initial discussions over the gray areas or the edge cases, which will then feed into a broader conversation. So what I have is I have a big list that I'm going to post into Valloward General, and I will probably move or condense this post later on. So what I'm going to do, folks who are watching, is I'm going to talk through a list of content. That may include mentioning things that people are not super excited to have in their world. I will only be saying this thing, and then red, it will not be in the game at all. Yellow, we're going to talk about it. Or green, everybody is fine to include it. These are just initial kind of weigh-ins. Content and safety is an ongoing conversation. If you don't want to hear anything in terms of a broad range of content notes, come back in like 10 minutes. But it should probably be fine because what we're doing is literally making sure that everybody is safe. If your lines don't overlap with ours, then you'll want to make sure to advocate for yourself and your own safety. So that said, the first thing, the first question on my list is like, if this was a movie, what rating would this movie be given in the US? So G, PG, PG-13, R, or NC-17. It wasn't going to be NC-17 because Twitch wouldn't work. Twitch wouldn't let us do that, right? So we had a 50-50. 2 people said PG-13 and 2 people said R. What that means to me is I think we're going to
PG-16. We're just going to put it right in the middle. And like
we're going to default to PG-13.
Okay.
But I think in PG-13, you can get away with a little bit of swearing. I would say that, it's not going to be Boondock Saints levels of swearing or like, what's that, the HBO, not Wild West Town show?
Oh,
where they constantly use
Deadwood.
It's not going to be Deadwood.
Yeah, just
in terms of language.
Yeah. Is this, by the way, also on the character keeper thing, Mike? Because if so, I can switch to the other map or the other overlay for that.
I can put it into something there. It's just too big to go into the character keeper as written. Let me see what happens if I do it this way. Yeah, that doesn't work.
This is just going to allow me basically to transition to a new overlay, another overlay, an overlay with a big, awesome freaking right thing side area for stuff. So
what I'm going to say, Greg, if you go to the Chronicle tab, which is on the far right of the character keeper, I have put it into that page, which was previously empty.
Yes, lovely. Thank you. That's perfect.
So we can do that.
That's perfect.
So I'm just going to talk down each section and then we can go over any discussion. So this is like kind of physical content. And again, green is everyone says go. Red is at least one person said, I don't want this in the game at all, and therefore it won't be in the game at all. Yellow is the middle ground of we want to check in first. Bugs, yellow. Blood is green. Demons are green. Eyeballs are green. Gore is another yellow. Harm to animals, red. Harm to children, red. Rats and spiders were both green. So I'm going to say on harm to children, what age range do we want to set for who counts as children? Is that 16 and below?
I'm okay if we say something like 16 and below, because there might be like harm to teenagers, older teenagers. But I'd be happier if there wasn't like death to anyone under 18.
Okay.
I am willing to, for the purposes of having an arbitrary definition of child, I'm willing to just defer to Premee. But a part of me also generates a kind of you know it and you see it kind of energy, where child in a lot of senses also means if someone is young to the point where we as viewers or players can still assess that they don't have agency in this situation, it would be kind of unfortunate to just have them suffer the consequences of that lack of agency, even if they were 18. Like 20-year-olds, they're idiots. They could deal with that. 18-year-olds, no.
Okay, so I think we'll kind of set a tentative note there in the kind of 16 to 18 range, because there's also the question of like, is the age of majority different in this culture compared to like in the US, 18 is adult, except that then there's things that are above 8, like, okay, you can't do X until you're 21. It's because it's very silly. So yes, we'll check in on that to make sure that we're not inadvertently getting into a place that folks are not comfortable with. The other, and then animals, I'm going to say the closest that we would get there probably is if there are monsters, that there might be monsters that basically function as predators. But I can then adjust things so that we're dealing with monsters that are more concerned with like attacking adults or attacking humans, and then just kind of because I'm the GM, making sure that we don't get rampage that kind of crosses our lines. Okay. The other yellows were bugs and gore. So does anybody want to talk about where they would want to set a line with those? If not, we can just always check in when those are going to come up.
I'm okay to just check in when those come up.
Okay. Yeah. Same.
Same. I mean, it's set on an island in the fantasy Caribbean. There are gonna be bugs. I guess.
Has anyone seen the bugs in the Caribbean? Like, they're bigger than some of the children.
Yeah.
That's true. Do we have a concern with gore coming from bugs, or is that like, you know?
Oh, like ichor.
Yeah, ichor.
Hemolymph. Yeah, I'm fine with that. That's fine.
What if
it doesn't get on my clothes?
I was gonna say, and assuming that it's a age of majority bug, no 14-year-old bug.
We're not pushing any larvae, okay?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No harm to larvae.
No harm to larvae.
A content note that someone brought up in the kind of follow-up that I think was a very good note. In the world building, we talked about, or I established, and then we built on the idea of the plentifruit having hallucinogenic properties, which means we should check in about what folks are comfortable with in terms of depictions of characters that are hallucinating, characters that are intoxicated, and like the kind of the culture around that.
So like one of the things that I was particularly concerned about, it doesn't need to actually come out in game. Like, we can decide whether that's going to be a thing that happens in the game at all. But one of the cultural questions around the plenty fruit also includes the question of whether, in the attempt to get someone else to have an oracular experience, people are often drugged. Because that is kind of iffy and weird. But you'd also imagine if someone else were telling this story, if George R. R. Martin were playing this game with us, he'd be like, yeah, sometimes people just get drugged. And I feel like we need to actively answer that question, because I feel like the answer to at least that last part for me is no.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm perfectly willing to respect that if that's how it comes down. I'm reminded of this is going to be a very bizarre analogy, but I'm reminded of the first ever MMO I played, Meridian 59, where there was no sort of like anti-griefing mechanic, and it was based purely on complete overwhelming like server-wide taboo against things like player killing, so that someone who did it was just a pariah. So I can imagine a scenario where someone who were to do the drugging thing would be like the big, oh my God, in season 3, they did this thing which redefines everything and it never happens again, like at that level. However, I'm also perfectly willing to say, you know what, that's still, obviously that's still beyond what we're willing to allow. So the casual, everyone just gets drugged as a matter of course, 100% no, I agree with you. But I could see an argument for this is a massive potential character moment that when it happens redefines everything and means that we like look at that particular NPC with, I don't know, contempt, disgust, hatred, whatever. So I just wanted to throw that out there, but I'm also happy to just say like, no, we just don't do that. I mean, that's cool. I just wanted to throw that out as a possibility.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as Greg actually, because I was about to say like, I could see this happening once. And then after that, like, all trust is destroyed.
Yeah.
There's no possible way you can do it twice.
Yeah.
It's like everybody's taking precautions against it now. Everybody's like, I can't believe that happened. I can't.
This is like red wedding territory, right? Like
this
just
is
like
red
no.
wedding territory.
Yeah.
But if we don't want that to happen at all, I also think that's quite reasonable. And I think we're also probably going to have a lot more cases where people are like faking oracular experiences, or pretending that they ate the plenty fruit, or just flat out lying to people, because that is probably how we are all going to roll.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I think I will extend basically this limitation to NPCs or PCs getting drugged with something in such a fashion that will then make them hallucinate or kind of lead to disassociation. So we'll just kind of put a solid line there, and if the story leads to the point where we want to revisit that conversation, we can revisit that conversation to see if everyone is now interested in having this be a thing. Because again, with any of these, a line is a line. Like a line for one person is a line for the game. Because otherwise it's not fair.
Yep.
So the next chunk are in basically four permutation sublines, and the places where the answer for all four is one, I'm just gonna kind of summarize here. So romance with a fade to black or explicitly described, and or between PCs and or NPCs is all yellow. So the game as written makes a lot of space for romance. There is space in this game for it. I would say no character is required to have a paramour. No character is required to participate in romance. I would say there is likely like arranged marriages in the society, unless people just don't want it to be there. Like this is where we are going to be able to drift our setting specifically from Court of Blades mechanically if we want to. So for anyone here, is anyone who is here interested in having romance be a part of the game? And if so, would you be okay talking about how?
I want to hear why Brandon is smiling. Brandon just had this little smile like, .
So I will say this. as previously stated, Court of Blaze leaves a lot of space for romance in the genre sense, and not the all of the myriad other senses in which we use the word romance. In the energy that I have as a player of being a fan of other players, I'm always really into the idea of romantic engagement with not only NPCs but PCs, in the event that other players are also into that, because that is a layer of character interaction that is often taboo. For a lot of genuinely healthy reasons, people don't want to get into romantic entanglements with other players because that's another real person who, in a lot of ways, you don't know. But I'm very interested, especially given the courtly intrigue implications of the game itself, to see how playing romance in the face of all of those other conflicts can not only be sources for interesting conflict, but in particular, sources of novel ways in which people resolve those conflicts. That two people can go, yes, we disagree about this thing, and yes, this disagreement is particularly important because the consequences might be dire, but because I love you, we need to figure out another way to resolve this than being angry at each other. Because the consequences will be dire regardless. And I'm kind of into that if other people are into that.
Yeah, I have no problem with any of that.
I'm profoundly uninterested in playing any of the romance stuff. So if people want, they're welcome to like fall in love with me or whatever, but it's never going to get reciprocated. I'm just going to be too busy intriguing and be like, yeah, maybe later on I'll find myself like a nice romantic partner, but for now I probably got to like stab and lie my way through the city. So I'm wondering if this is like a fiction thing too, because there's never any romance in any of my books. I'm like, I'm not interested. It's not vibing with me at all. So you guys run around doing romance stuff, and I'll run around eating street food and doing whatever and waiting till you're done.
Yeah, and I think
that's what the NPCs are for.
Right. What I'll suggest then and get feedback on is, for any of y'all as players, you're welcome to flag to me as the GM, hey, this is an NPC that I'm interested in that my character either having this person as a romantic interest, or I'm interested in this character as a player, and that's a general thing that I would be very happy to hear from other players. Are like, oh, I think this person's really interesting. I want to see them on stage more.
Can we have interesting X's? I would be interested in having some interesting X partners.
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
That I can,
because one never knows.
Yeah, and like Blades in the Dark, each character has a set of contacts that you as the player get to detail. So if you want one of those characters to be an X and then to play that dynamic, we can definitely do that. And again, this the kind of content here is all actively an ongoing negotiation. So like we can always say, oh, okay, actually we're gonna nip this in the bud because somebody's not interested in XYZ anymore, and that's totally cool. So we have, for like sex, we have red on explicit description. That fits Twitch's terms of service, so that works just fine. We have a yellow on fade to black, and we have a yellow on sex between PCs and NPCs. So I'm going to say that at most we would like out of scene say, okay, we know that these characters have been together. And again, no characters have to be involved in any scenes along those lines unless the player wants them to be. They're not going to kind of take up a lot. They're not going to get a lot of screen time because everything would be kept off screen. And so how does that sound for folks?
Yeah, seems good.
I'm very much in a kind of Shakespeare school of, yes, sex happens, but you don't need to see it. We're here to see people get stabbed.
Yeah.
Actually, anyways.
I didn't see. Okay. To be clear,
we could get into that as well.
I'm just
But
kidding.
like,
I'm like,
I'm
shouldn't
very-
make that joke. Premee's like, so let me just fire this up here.
I didn't finish the sentence, did I? That's
No.
still PG-13.
No, you didn't. No, it was very good. It was
but
quality.
the thing is, interestingly enough, I think that's kind of why I don't want sex to happen in the game, because I'm very much into the idea of people going, yeah, sex happens. Yeah, these characters have had sex or probably have, but we never actually have to be deliberately explicit about that. It's just like it's a thing that everybody knows is happening,
Yep.
and possibly has a place in the intrigue that is presently taking place. But you're not here to have us talk about that. You're here to watch us stab people.
And side note, that's, since we talked about this before, that's the way my work is exactly handles it that way. Because I don't, these people who can write great on-screen sex scenes, it's never been of any interest to me up front.
Yeah.
If you want to put it in behind the screen, it absolutely happens. That's important, but
Fun
do not
fact,
need.
the
Yeah.
number of people who can do that is very, very small, and I don't trust most people who try.
Yeah, like and the effect of it still is very powerful, regardless, to know that there's something there, that something happened. The fade to black thing is very clear. It's not an avoidance of it, right? It's just, hey, I want it to be done properly when it's going to be done. So anyway, yeah,
Right. And
I'm on board. That's fine.
If you want to read good sex scenes written in prose, I would direct you to the romance section, where most of the people who are good at that are working. And they do great work.
Exactly. Bless those people.
So for like the next chunk is like 8 things in a row that are all yellow. So I think I'm just going to kind of roll them up in one conversation, which is basically emotional or physical abuse, violent conflict, and betrayal between PCs, which is all yellow. So what I would say is that in a scene where something is going to get like heated between characters, I think it's good to check in either to say like, hey, this character is going to basically unload on this other character verbally, and or like if there was stuff that we might describe in terms of like verbal or like relational abuse, then we can zoom out and either say, this is what they're talking about, or like they're saying these kinds of things, and then we can respond to them with some remove. I would say violent conflict between PCs, I'm always going to kind of put up a pause when it seems like we're getting to the point where we may be doing PvP, whether that is like verbal or social PvP or physical, where I want to make sure that the players are checking in with each other. Where it's like, okay, if both players are excited to have their characters get in an argument, and we know that the players are cool and everything is fine, and the characters are the ones who are having the conflict, and we feel comfortable doing that, and then having the time to debrief at the end of the game to make sure that we don't have bleed or deal with it as it comes up, make sure that everybody's on the same page and being like, hey, like, I feel good about that scene. Do you feel good about that scene? Is everything okay? I'm okay to do that, but the weight of the bulk of that weight falls on y'all as the other players.
Yeah, which I think is fine. I mean, I think the yellow in this area is mostly, our trust. I mean, I won't only speaking for me, but I'm guessing Premee and Brandon would agree that it's trust in you as the GM to understand how to handle the situations in general terms, and then trust in each other not to do nonsensical, dumb things when it comes to this stuff that would obviously break boundaries. I feel like we're all capable of doing that. So that's why yellow. But the having it there, again, this is a little bit in that category of what Premee and I were talking about regarding the drug thing, where there will be moments I can imagine where you will see emotional abuse from a PC to an NPC, and that's going to be one of the driving forces behind why that person needs to be dealt with and addressed. And there's going to be, I'm going to let you all know right now that my character is going to have a fundamental aspect of anti-bullying behavior, because I'm going to get an opportunity to flourish that shit right the hell out. So I am very excited to do that. So I'm just letting you all know that's going to be something I want to do. So having it there that we can be like, hell no to that, and just not depicting it in a way that would be hugely upsetting, of course, to people or whatever. That I think is where I'm coming down with that. So that's why I wouldn't red light it, but yellow, yeah, just use a little caution. That's all.
Yeah, like I'm very much in the same boat. I think for me, having those things at yellow is essentially saying, in general, there is a way that I want this to be performed, so we can get the most drama out of a particular scene. But I don't want to accidentally trigger any specific kind of response to a specific kind of behavior that someone's experienced, and I don't want anybody to do that for me. So we're just gonna have the GM referee that we don't step on each other's toes, so we can play the best possible scene that we can.
Yeah. Can I just note, by the way, that looking at the sheet on the screen right now, so you just see like blood, green, demons, green, eyeballs, green, gore, yellow, harm to animals, red, harm to children, red, rats, green, spiders, green. I just had this image of like, just being like, all right, hey Bob, hey Earl, just like casually going through, that's fine. Oh my God, that's fine. But all the stuff that's fine is like rats, spiders, demons, blood, that's fine. Eyeballs.
Yeah, it's
unlimited amounts of rats, so long as nothing happens to them.
I was just about to say, we didn't talk about harm to rats or harm to spiders.
Rats are animals.
Listen, I lived in New York City. I lived in New York City. I got to be a little careful on the rat point. I don't know.
I think because some people
If there's
have rats as
incidental
pets.
damage to rats, that's fine.
Yeah. Collateral damage to rats.
Now that Greg has said that, the image that I actually have in my mind is that like there is an office somewhere where all of the GMs have to get all of the resources they need for their actual plays, and Mike is now like going through shelves. Okay,
Yeah.
bugs. We only need some bugs. Take 2 jars of bugs off the shelf.
I got a special
Demons?
on
Okay,
crickets
cool.
this month.
Drags this large shelf full
Where are
of
the
demons.
eyeballs? I can't find the eyeballs.
I put them behind the ears if you just go over there.
Yep.
Do you have any rats in stock? Live rats or dead rats? Live rats. Okay, cool. You just need to go in the back over there.
Are any of the rats demons? Yeah.
A while back, I saw a cool old metal grocery shopping aid, which was basically a little metal placard with
Little like
little bits of
tabs
metal
on it, right?
tabs.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I need milk and bread and whatever, and then you can like flip the tabs as you get them. So yeah, that's me with content
Yeah.
as I go to the GM store.
Yeah.
So in our next block, we have homophobia. No, get the F out. Transphobia. No, get the F out. So that there's enough of that in the world. In this world, I'm fine not having it in our world.
Yeah.
We have yellows on this next 4: racism, real world religion, sexism, and specific cultural issues, which is kind of like that's an umbrella area, which then means that we'll want to unpack it. So as a GM who is a white person, I'm totally fine with not having racism in the fantasy world that I helped create, but I am creating this with all of y'all. So I will make sure that we have a conversation.
So, where I stand personally is, I do feel, based on the storytelling, based on the world building that we've already done about Valloward, while it doesn't need to be racism, some element of xenophobia does exist in this history that does need to come into play narratively, but we just need to be particularly responsible about it, which is why it's at yellow, and I put it at racism because there wasn't a xenophobia section on the sheet.
Sure.
That was what I was thinking too, and I was specifically thinking, I don't think the people, for example, coming in as refugees before a big storm for protection on Valloward are a different, like, ethnicity or color than anybody on the islands, but they are foreigners, they are strangers, and
Yep.
I think the locals will treat them differently. So yeah, like Brandon, I was like, well, this isn't exactly racism, but it's certainly going to be like, oh, those guys.
Right, so
kind of,
discrimination
possibly.
based on national origin / cultural outgroups.
Yeah, cultural
that are-
outgroups.
that
That's
are
a way to
not,
put it. Yeah.
that don't exist specifically within the context of race and racism. because I imagine most of the nations that I detailed as either multi-ethnic or potentially like kind of pluralistically multi-ethnic. When I did Born of the Blade with Realm, we basically just had all of the nations are multi-ethnic, and stuff is nationalism, not racism. So we can do something somewhat similar here, which works for me just fine.
Yeah, I was even thinking of like kind of like the Roman Empire, right? So
Yep.
it's like the Romans are the Romans, and then there are these Italians. They're not Roman citizens. Like they live 30 miles away. Come on, they're not different people from you. Oh, but
Right.
they're Italians.
Yeah.
How do
But
folks?
where is Rome?
Yeah,
Anyhow.
right. Um,
Rome is Rome. Totally different.
so in a setting where you've got noble families and there's some element of continuity of family in terms of inheritance or whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be like patrilineal or matrilineal or like direct blood lineage. How do folks what are folks thinking about basically gender roles and sexism? Do we want any of that to play any part of this world as something that people struggle against? Is this something that is these elements that are just not present in these societies?
So I had two seemingly contradictory thoughts about this, and this was a world building thing that totally slipped my mind when we were discussing it the first time, which is the reason why I think that sexism is fine at yellow is because I do want to play with the drama of um, being culturally considered as inferior and then struggling against and ultimately revealing yourself as more valuable than the people who hate you. But I'm also really intrigued by the idea that the way that gender roles are implied in Valloward are inverted, but still hostile in a way that need to be challenged. Um, like, um, it doesn't necessarily need to just go all the way to becoming um, matriarchal. But how do we tell a story, for instance, about um, whether some expressions of masculinity are considered inferior, or even like to ask the more like deeply intricate question about gender roles. What if there are specific individual expressions of both masculinity and femininity that are considered inferior um, in ways that are different than the real world? And we are telling the story of characters discovering that they want to push back against that assumption.
Are they inferior, or are they transgressive / excessive?
I like transgressive. Transgressive is fun. But I mean, the way that that is oppressively expressed is always attempting to tell people that something is a failure about you. And what
Right.
if you're discovering, wait, no, I am the most successful person here. I'm the most rad person in this room. It's all of you that are wrong. I'm very intrigued by doing stuff with that in ways that reveal some of the more like hollow and meaningless aspects of the way that we imagine gender roles in the first place without having to perform real life to the letter.
Yeah, I feel like that could be a really interesting kind of narrative engine for specific scenes, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Like the deliberately being transgressive, like being intentional about it, and using that as kind of a lever or something to drive the scene forward.
Because I mean, in the genre that we're playing, um, in history, a lot of the times, the like some of the more interesting stories about historical figures are the fact that they're allowed to be transgressive because they have power, but still only in certain ways.
Right.
And what if, essentially, we're telling the story of people who know that, but learned that the ways that they want to be transgressive are the ways that they're not allowed to be. and that everybody else is allowed to do that, and they don't know why, and it sucks. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think we can probably set things up so that any given player can opt their character into that if they want. And that can be a character specific thing. So if we have one character who wants to struggle against gender roles in a way, and that doesn't set us up to have world building that puts other people into situations they don't want for their characters, then we can probably make that work. How does that sound?
That definitely works for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So Brandon and I talked some about religion in the kind of post Ex Novo stream. I have developed some religions that are none of what I've created or developed has a one-to-one analog on Earth. Here's a polytheistic society over here. Here's a monotheistic society over here that, to my knowledge, does not look like a one-to-one of anything from our world. I think having touchstones from religions in our world can be useful for comparison, which is probably what I would be doing. Does that sound okay?
Yes, for me it does.
Yeah, fine by me.
Okay. And again, if someone was like, hey, can we not draw on Christianity here? Like, that's a totally valid thing. Sorry, just checking a message real quick.
It's the church. They're like, just so you know. Damn it.
I was checking to see whether Marie might be able to participate in a limited fashion, and the answer appears to be no, unfortunately. So I will follow up with Marie on all of this and hope that things line up. If not, I will have more work and it'll be fine.
Sorry, I was laughing about the Christianity thing because the Pope is actually like in town right now.
Right, yeah, I saw that.
Doing like Pope stuff.
I saw that.
I don't know what.
Yes,
he's also in town at the same time as like 500 other things. So there's like a gaming summit and like a world naked bike ride and like a triathlon and
Canada's the happening place. And they're all happening because of the Pope. The naked bike rides to celebrate the Pope. Like there's all, you know.
I assume he participated, yeah.
I mean, at this point, given all of the decisions that he has made since he's gotten there, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure you've seen the photo. I'm like, I get that they've given this to you, but maybe don't wear it because people are gonna point it out to you.
Yeah. I don't know though. Having a Pope actually go and acknowledge to the level that he's doing is historically enormous for the Catholic Church. I'll just say that. So
the one Pope who's willing to apologize.
Agree. Yeah, but like, but you know, in an institution which counts things over millennia, you know, it's you know, they do not, however, deserve a cookie. I'm just glad to see there's a Pope doing it. That's all. But yeah, you're right. That was a little unfortunate.
So I'm kind of rearranging a chunk because we have a long list of things that are all yellow.
Okay. They were all yellow.
So does anybody want to chat about anything more in this chunk of material, race and xenophobia, any other specific cultural issues, like, I guess, as they might echo or resonate with our world and how they show up in Valloward?
I feel like there's going to be like a lot more classism than there's going to be like sexism or racism or xenophobia or anything like that. Because I think in the absence of being able to prove, oh God, get out of the way, move. In the absence of being able to prove any kind of like historical accomplishments, martial valor, et cetera, the proxy here is going to kind of be like money and status. So that's going to be the deciding factor in a lot of, I think, things much more than any other ism. Kind of like the real world. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so if Marie's internet magically comes online, then she will try to join us, but we will proceed. So,
Everyone, give Marie your energy.
yes, spirit bomb the internet into working.
Exactly.
So we have a red line on sexual assault, so it just won't ever be in this game. Dear Game of Thrones prequel showrunner, watch Fury Road and think about your mistakes.
I wasn't going to call anybody out, but I'm thankful that you did.
I wasn't going to name names.
When you say lazy, I say thrones. Lazy. Lazy.
So we have yellow on a long list it's a list of a number of things, and I'm going to just mention each of them, and we can talk through stuff as needed. Cancer, claustrophobia, freezing to death, gaslighting, genocide, heat stroke, paralysis or physical restraint, police or police aggression, pregnancy, miscarriage, abortion, self-harm, starvation, terrorism, torture, and thirst. A lot of these are things where if a scene looks like it may be going to this point, we will, I think, have the chance to pause and check in before it happens. I would say on the broader scale stuff, like I can probably just not have genocide be a part of the story of this game. And I think we can talk about what we want the City Watch to be like. Is the City Watch like not like US policing in important ways? Or do we want to have a shitty police department that people are struggling against, and things like that? I would say in terms of paralysis or physical restraint, they're in like the kind of physical adventure parts of stories. There are likely to be situations where a character may be restrained, but we have a built-in mechanical tool called resistance, where if a character would get a mechanical consequence that says you're restrained, you can just resist that consequence. So that's an extra tool we have. But again, this is something where you can check in, or anybody can check in and say, can we not do it this way? Can we do something another way?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. And also, I feel like if there's freezing to death on our tropical island, something has gone terribly wrong.
Yeah, we have other problems at that point.
We have other problems at that point.
Yeah.
I like the idea that we hit both of them at the same time, like heat stroke and freezing to death. Our island is just, we're done, y'all. This island is not.
Sometimes the weather is so volatile, you just suffer both at once.
Yeah. I was going to say, it sounds like the prairies. Yeah.
Or Florida.
On like pregnancy and reproduction, I would say it's likely that there may be some stories where certain NPCs having kids or being pregnant is probably important. No PC will ever be pregnant unless the player wants them to be. Is a line I'm very happy to draw. If in any character relationships with NPCs, that is something that may come up. That's something we can check in about off screen or like in chat. Like that doesn't have to be public facing. Is there anything on this list that anyone wants to check in about at the moment?
For me at the moment, it's just like to specify that a lot of these yellows I think can also be interpreted as if they're happening off screen.
Sure.
Especially when it comes to like miscarriage and abortion is probably kind of close for a lot of people right now, so even if it does happen, it does need to be something that we have to like deliberately like reckon with on screen. Similarly, like one of the reasons why I'm intrigued by like exploring how the police manifests in this game is that a lot of that could possibly also give us room to have conversations about like how can this situation be improved, or what made the situation be as bad as it is, without like always having to like, as opposed to marking it as red because ACAB, even though ACAB, this gives us an opportunity to possibly look a cop in the eye and go, do you know that what you're doing is wrong? And hear the cop say, yes, but I have no choice. What are we going to do now? And then help the cop stop being a cop.
Yeah, because there's like one of the great houses, Bastien, is very much a people's champion house. So there's a version of like you could do a Court of Blades game that is the abolish and reimagine public safety campaign in like your fantasy renaissance, right? 100%. Okay. I think that gives me a decent sense. We have green on severe weather and natural disasters. Again, if a scene gets to the point where someone's feeling uncomfortable, pause, put an X in our Zoom chat. I think, using both the X card and the script change tools that are very like VCR-ish, pause, fast forward, rewind. I find I often reach for cinematic language when I'm GMing so that those tools are readily at hand. And because we are telling a story in a Caribbean-ish setting, severe weather makes sense as a thing that shows up. And it definitely showed up in both our map making game and in one of the other world building sessions. So seems like we're cool there. And
after all, it's been showing up in real life too. So
yeah. Permanent death of PCs and significant NPCs are both discussed whenever it may occur. The death of a PC is almost always a decision that the player makes mechanically as a baseline in a Forged in the Dark game because you have resistance. I would probably check in on something like, hey, if you do this, there would be a very good chance that in the fiction, this character would die. And I will step out of the fiction and say, as the GM, like, it seems to me like this is where this is going. And if a player is like, no, I think this is where I want this to go. This is a good ending for this character. We can tell that story. And I think for important NPCs, I will signpost if something is bad is going to happen to them and give us the chance to either have a PC interpose and save them, flashback to having saved them, or we check in like, hey, it seems like this character might die in this situation. How we're feeling about that. Otherwise, then there can be like near death or, plots to appear as if you've died, but it was actually all a ruse to draw out some villain who then can be, brought to justice or something.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm in favor of all of these things.
That is the end of my content check-in list. Is there anything anybody wants to return to or discuss before we move on to kind of broader palette and tone discussion? Okay. So I'm going to jump back over to the safety tools tab, which I will then populate with the kind of condensed version of what we've discussed here. But one of the things that we have is the palette. So this is kind of inspired by Microscope by Ben Robbins, which is a very cool game. Shout out. And the text says, to refine the tone for the game, we take turns adding unusual things we want to see and banning things we are comfortable with but aren't interested in seeing. Each round, every player gets to add something, ban something, or pass. If a player passes their turn, finish the round. Afterwards, repeat the process. And then these are all up for discussion. Valloward is on an island, Trifidi Mats, in an island in an archipelago. So this is like, if someone's like, I really want the fencing in the streets swashbuckling part of this game, that's a thing to add. Or I want to really highlight the earth magic that we talked about. Or I want my character to get caught in webs of intrigue, like that kind of stuff. In in the canvas that we've started sketching out, what parts are you especially interested in as a player, maybe playing a big role for this game? The kind of three pillars of Court of Blades, if I take it from the way the sales copy is, Court of Blades is a game of power politics, gunpowder diplomacy, and romantic skullduggery. And some of these are kind of combos, and we're not using their setting, so it's maybe not gunpowder. It doesn't necessarily have to be gunpowder. But to y'all, what parts of this setting and or game are you especially excited about?
I'm particularly intrigued to see us at least briefly interact with inter-island politics.
Okay.
Like, how do other people feel about Vala Isle? Are there other territories seeking to usurp our power?
Right.
Are there people who really need us that we're not helping, and we need to find a way to convince these people to help them?
Right.
Stuff like that is particularly intriguing to me.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm quite interested in the religious aspects of it, and also kind of the idea of there being sort of the mainstream religion, but then also sort of the splinters, the factions, the cults. This idea of like fanatics trying to steer the course of history because they think that's what they're supposed to be doing because they're religious fanatics, and that's how they roll.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I've definitely got room for that in the faction work that I've already done. Greg, what's one element you're especially excited to see and want in the game?
Yeah, I mean, I was, I think I'm being too 30,000 foot view, but actually the order that you put it, power politics, gunpowder diplomacy and romantic skullduggery is the order that I would put in.
Okay.
Least interesting being the romantic skullduggery, although that, whatever, a little bit of that's fine. But the power politics in particular, like the political intrigue is of particular interest to me, especially political intrigue that we have some kind of a role in shaping. I love stories about intrigue. I do not love stories where I feel I need to be redoing a primer on War of the Roses to be able to get well, the third York hated the 75th Lancaster cousin. Like, oh my God, please. So that does not interest me. But the idea of, in general terms, power politics and intrigue where we are able to interact with it and also have some minor prayer of understanding it without, the 700 years of history prior and afterwards. I'm not saying that it shouldn't exist. I just don't want to go read the history book, basically, the whole thing. That's all.
I've done a fair bit of extra world building, but I've intentionally left spaces so that we can create stuff and play, because when you're playing a TTRPG with for professional science fiction and fantasy writers, I want to leave space for people to be like, oh, cool, I'm going to create a whole thing here.
Yeah.
Or I had this great idea between, session 3 and session 4.
Proxima in chat points out that he wants to do the sequel, Traffic Court of Blades. And I was just like, that's true. That is the next logical step.
I do have a notable fashion that is effectively the Valloward Department of Public Works.
Outstanding. As long as we can have a whole session spent in the Valloward DMV, that'd be really great. If we could just have something where we're filling out forms.
Bottle episode.
Oh yeah, listen, sign me up. That one's straight. That's the during the writer's strike episode. Yeah. Everybody.
The game as written says that the player characters are valued and high-ranking retainers. So they are trusted members of the house. So if there is intrigue in the house, y'all are going to be involved.
Yeah, sign me up. That's what I'm here for.
Yep, I want some intrigue.
Yep.
Awesome.
I also like what Gregory was saying about like the 700 years of history. Like, yeah, in a sense, our people in Valloward are stepping onto that treadmill of history. But also in another sense, we're kind of starting our own race at our own starting point.
That's right.
Because we've been sent here. So whatever the inciting incident is for our intrigues, we have to know the history, but we don't have to interact with it.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's fascinating to
as much as
discover.
we might.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to like discover little elements of history that have current present day application, right? Like that's cool. And I can imagine a scenario where we're like, wait, do you realize 200 years ago they didn't even do it this way because XYZ? Like that might be cool, but not because you're obligated. Again, like you're
Yeah.
getting a graduate degree or something in this particular thing. That, yeah. So agree.
Okay. Are there any other elements that folks are especially interested in that we should add to the list, or things not already covered by our content check-in that folks want to add? Something that I have a question about is how Magitech do we want to be? Because there was discussion of magic train lines in the Ex Novo discussion. And I have some world building that points in that direction. And some of the stuff that Brandon and I talked about also points in that direction, where we could have a version of this where, thanks to some magical technology, there are parts of this setting that are not 16th, 17th century equivalent, but maybe 18th, 19th century equivalent, potentially beyond that. So there's like arcane Magitech, like the League of Legends cartoon. There's like Final Fantasy VI Magitech. And then there's like Final Fantasy VII Magitech, where it's like futuristic Magitech.
Yeah.
I don't know that anything is pointing us that way, but how do folks feel about the Magitech vibe, small or large or somewhere in between?
It's funny because the Expedition, the Mysterious Peaks campaign that we're launching tomorrow is a big Magitech vibe, so it's very much on everyone's mind. I mean, I adore that kind of stuff. I love the infusion that it provides. I think, look, if we're going to do a fantasy campaign, I'll be straight up and say I'd like a little magic in it. I doesn't have to overwhelm, but man, having even the subtle tinges, occasional moments of wonder, I think that's a very positive thing. And it's one of the reasons, quite frankly, that I got interested in fantasy from the beginning, was because even when I was younger, was this sense of magic and the wondrous, right? Is something which continues to motivated me then and continues to motivate me now. So I don't think it has to be high magic necessarily, but man, I would like, personally would like some magic, floating through there that is part of the background at least. It's just me.
So my personal desire when it comes to Magitech is, I tend to separate these things between source and aesthetic. And I kind of really want the Magitech to be source influenced by Final Fantasy VI, but aesthetically influenced by Final Fantasy 13.
Oh, 13. Interesting. I thought you were going to say influenced by 6, but aesthetically 7. Or 9, either of which I would have been good with. I mean, 13's fine too. This is by the way, like, there's people in chat are like, what is this Final Fantasy 7? You have no idea, okay? This is awesome. I get to finally feel like Brandon gets to feel hanging out with Yuri and talking about Kamen Rider. I'm on board for this discussion.
So, Brandon, I have not played Final Fantasy 13. Could you unpack a little bit about what a Final Fantasy 13 aesthetic you would want to see?
Right. First, I need to remind myself if I'm remembering the right number.
Is it 13.2?
13 is the one with lightning and the train, and it takes 40
right,
hours.
Yeah, it's the wrong number. I've gotten the wrong number, actually.
Okay.
I'm thinking about the one with Noctis. There are so many numbers, and one of them is
15.
an MMO. Right, 15.
Final Fantasy 15 is Boy's own Final Fantasy.
Right. Yes.
With the car, right? I don't think I've played
car.
15. Okay, I haven't played 15. But I got it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So like,
yeah.
Persona meets Final Fantasy, basically.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So like, the thing in my head is, I like the idea, because we don't know what time this is set in, and we don't need to care because it's our world. So I'm very intrigued by the idea that, in terms of the progression of the actual source of energy, it's still, like, regardless of the magical properties of that source, and especially because we're using earth magic, that it has relative properties that are in the steampunk area, but obviously elevated because of magical shenanigans. And then we get to establish what those power levels and limitations are through additional world building. But that aesthetically, we have, if not gone all the way into being presently modern, the other thing that I will settle for is, um, you know how back in the like 60s to 80s, magazines would have these like vague, very weird, obviously culturally, aesthetically shaped images of what their future, which is our present, would look like. And it was all flying cars with domed hoods.
A lot of rounded corners in those days.
Everything
a lot
is-
of rounded corners.
Everything
like,
is pastel.
yeah.
They assumed that the cabriolet vehicle would look a certain way that it doesn't look anymore. That, like, even if we are making adjustments to what that looks like for the game, that we're leaning very much onto that. That the way that tech looks is an attempt at a kind of stylishness that is obviously a mark of class as well, but is also an indicator that some of the aesthetic choices that are attached to Magitech is an attempt to visually establish that Magitech is more powerful, is more culturally significant than it would be in another genre, like steampunk. If
Okay, so-
any of that makes sense, I'm sure it
So like
does.
the Magitech as almost like a conspicuous consumption element,
Oh yeah,
aesthetically
definitely.
and culturally.
Yeah.
Premee, how are your thoughts and feelings on Magitech stuff for this?
I am nodding politely because I did not understand any of those references.
Told you.
I don't. What do you people do in your spare time? Do you just play Final Fantasy?
You all write
Well-
more than I do, so of course the answer to this question is yes.
I'm 49, Premee. There was a time when I did do only that, all right? When I was young.
Back in the day. Yeah, well, I'm 40 and I haven't played any Final Fantasy, sorry. So I was looking for like another cultural touchstone, and what kind of occurred to me was almost like some of the later Discworld books. So they have
Sure.
things like the computers and stuff, and it's still a computer, but it runs on magic, or kind of like the sort of late 1800s, early Victorian, Edwardian, like the difference engine, Bruce Sterling, William Gibson, but powered by magic instead of powered by steam. So I'm totally okay with any of that. If it's steampunk with magic, I'm cool with that. I like the idea of like magic trains, because anybody could make a steam train, but like magic.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
like the most basic version of magic trains is Earth Magic Maglev, where the Earth magic flips the magnetic polarity that pulls and pushes the train. Now we can go weirder than that, but as like a this is how it works baseline, but then we add some numinousness to it. Like that works. I am also a big fan of the Magitech vibe. I have space magic in my space opera book that I published in 2020. I think other touchstones, like in fiction, might include something like the Robert Jackson Bennett City of Stairs and sequels.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one is more like 20th century Cold War, but it's fantasy, where there's, you get some of that kind of stuff. A lot of the other references are TV, film, and video games, because the Magitech tends to be so aestheticized.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and like Prince Justin mentions Eberron, which is like
I was just about to say Eberron. Yeah, exactly.
where I feel like Baker and everyone else who's worked on Eberron after like Keith Baker created it has really followed through on what it would be like to take a traditional fantasy setting, but then really have magic be important from top to bottom,
Yeah.
and that history happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And the defining event in Eberron is the morning, this massive cataclysmic magical explosion during the last war. And much of Eberron is set after that last war with the sort of echoes of that. I mean, I'm running an Eberron campaign in the channel right now where this is exactly what's being discussed. So yeah, listen, I'm all about anything like that is great on my side. I was thinking about Spring-Heeled Jack too, the Legend of Spring-Heeled Jack. I can't remember the name of the author for that. But that's more Steam directly. But there is an element there of technology that threatens to overload or overwhelm. And I don't necessarily mean that we want magic overloading or overwhelming, but I could imagine a scenario where even the use of the fruit, for example, could be an example of pulling away from, or I guess those who would use the fruit might make an argument about the idea that people themselves have become so accustomed to what the equivalent Magitech, technology or whatever provides them, that they don't realize that they are essentially engaged in precisely the same thing they would accuse heavy fruit users, right, of doing, which is to be sucked into something and being almost entrapped, enslaved, locked in somehow to this particular thing. So so I'm totally on board, with all of that.
Okay.
Mark
So
Hodder, that's right. Thank you, Prince Dustin. Yeah, Mark Hodder,
to-
Spring-Heeled Jack.
to expand a little bit with other world building work, Brandon and I had talked about that the earth magic of Valloward that kind of emerges when there's that big earthquake and then is used to like raise or recover a district. And then I think the Grey Mists use that magic as they build their great palace. That type of magic that's like very generative, constructive, and shaping might be distinct from, but exist alongside a more destructive form of magic that is most common in this setting's equivalent of Europe, where there is like destructive military magic. Yeah. So like in the Zoom chat, the New Weird has a fair amount of Magitech. So in something like Perdita Street Station, the Scar, and Iron Council, I am a fan of those books. I am disturbed by some things I've heard about Mieville. That's its own topic. But I like the New Weird, so I'm very happy to have that, some of that in the palette as well. So yeah, we'd have like kind of more like fireballs, ruin kind of magic, and then the kind of earth generative, not earth bending because we came up with our own word for it, Ardcraft, unless we go with a different word. So yeah, I think I want to have some room in the magic for like things like divination, either with the Plentifruit or without, some kind of more traditional European-ish hermetic magic stuff, and or like the folkloric types of divinatory magic that are fairly common across the world. And then we have some things that are more specific, where we have this earth-shaping magic that is tied to abundance and it's tied to a specific place here, and Valloward is rich in it in a way that other places aren't. So that's how I'm feeling about magic and the work that I've done. How does that sound to y'all?
I am very into all of these things.
Cool.
You do. And I like that that's something special specifically about the setting that they didn't have back in their original empire.
Yeah. Okay. So we're at about 9:52. We're going to take a break in a few minutes. Is there anything that folks want to specifically put on the ban list of like, oh, I'm not really interested in this subsection of stories, of like, oh, I don't want to do like ballroom missions where like it's a big masquerade party. I want to do those.
I was going to say, like, I don't know. That would be like, nope, sorry, no ballroom for you. Oh.
I mean, we kind of signed up for the thing.
We signed up for the thing. I'm not
playing
tired
a
of
Star
math.
Trek game and not wanting to be on a ship.
It's like someone banning, like, you know, awesome sword fighting. Like, no, like,
Please don't ban sword fighting.
Sword fighting. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, I was about to say, I noticed when I was glancing through the player book, they were like, you know, we encourage people to wear masks if they like. It's very much a part of the culture. I'm like, oh yeah, that's fine. We're all used to that now.
Oh no.
We'll be masked up. It's fine.
Yeah.
I feel like there was, you know, that chunk of time when most folks were wearing cloth masks and there was more like personal expression opportunities. A bit harder to do that with like N95s and KNs, unfortunately. Anyway, so in terms of like overall stuff going on in the island, I see the kind of status quo that we're going to come into as it's been probably more like 300 years than 200 years since the veterans founded what is now Valloward, that they have been there, generations have passed, enough time has passed that kind of 6 great families have emerged from various factions and kind of become families where these are, you know, the status and the association is handed down generation to generation, whether that is through biological inheritance, you know, family of choice, or anything like that. And they behave enough like families that we can think about all of them as these are the 6 great families, and that those families wield a great deal of influence in the city, but most of their ire and competitiveness is directed toward one another, internal to the city and the island, and that they're competing with each other to be the first family, the prime family. I also have the idea of like, oh, that the first prince in the game, it's the first prince. In Valloward, maybe it is the conductor of the dance, or like the prima something, or, you know, the prima donna of the dance, the prima donna of the dance. You know, we come up with other terms because I like the idea of dancing master for GM and the, you know, the great dance of houses, and that we come up with a specific flavor to that competition that that is the Valloward flavor, because Court of Blades has its own flavor in Esaltare, and that's cool, but we can make our own thing. And that in the city there would be kind of notable minor houses that may have a lot of power or wield a lot of power in specific areas, but they are playing on a different scale, that the great houses are playing their game with each other, and that involves manipulating and utilizing and allying and intriguing with these other factions. But then the other factions are places like the Valloward Rail Association that maintains and runs the magic rails, and the Sweepers, who are the public works group, and a guild of like a guild of farmers who band together, or the Valloward Church of Plenty, which is like a more split off from the old world church. And that then we would have factions that are the uncouth, who are kind of basically criminals, mercenaries, vigilantes. And then the third group, and these faction groupings are from Court of Blades, are outsiders. And that's like weirdos, magic people, and more literal outsiders. So under outsiders, I have the Lake Creature, Rebel Fate Witches, Ardcraft Secret Society, Rontist Refugees, a bunch of infighting artists, a beloved weird poet who is kind of the boss of a chunk of the city, and that kind of thing. So that's like a quick 30,000 foot view of how I'm seeing Valloward. I think Valloward, if we are echoing Court of Blades, there is a very large faction that is basically all of the 6 houses contribute to the standing army of Valloward, which is also like, which is what you would use if insert name of house has been found to do something horrendous, and we are going to drive them from the city. There's some kind of pooled resource that is the city state's military, and that is distinct from the City Watch. Does that sound okay for folks?
Yeah.
They're not likely to play a big role because it takes the cases in which they are used are so small.
Yeah, I was just wondering about it, so that answers that question. Thank you.
Okay. How does that overview sound?
Yeah, dig it.
I dig it a lot.
And so then the idea is that you all have probably already been servants of whatever house that we will pick after a short break. And you'd already done work for them, but now you are being assembled into a specific coterie of like, okay, the four of you are going to be this organized group that we are going to give missions to and say, here are priorities of the house, see them done using your discretion. And that there's some element where the houses want to get their intrigue and sometimes backhanded stuff done without it drawing out too much attention from the city. So where it's gauche to be too overt, which is then why you want to do intrigues and have masks and do skullduggery, like the skullduggery part, versus like open warfare in the streets between two houses, which, borrowing from Shakespeare is to be avoided because it causes massive problems, right? Hundreds of people dead in the streets is a bad idea for everybody.
We don't want to bite our thumb at anybody. Do we? I do want to highlight in chat that Triffid had mentioned before this idea. Not to jump back to what we already talked about, but and I like this idea I don't want to make it goofy, but I like the idea. Let me find the exact quote, which is a magic, where the aesthetics drives the power somewhat so that style matters and it's more effective if the artifact is beautiful. I love the idea of the kind of aesthetic quality to this. And so it was just occurring to me it sort of brought me, I was reminded of it when you said the thing about like basically it's considered gauche to do this in a particular way. And I love that image of something where where style almost becomes substance. And I have often thought that style and stuff like this gets undervalued as being surface level when I actually think it's fundamentally infused in what people culturally value. So anyway, I did want to highlight that and I forgot to mention it at the time.
So like, beauty and form leads to power and function.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we understand that beauty doesn't have to have a specific reference. It's just a kind of like, I think we all know the drill of things that have a particular, there's a particular kind of aesthetic that we find admirable, right? And that would be the thing that would be focused on here. So anyway, I did want to mention that.
I like that in large part because I also like its implied opposite, which is it means that whenever a thing is confirmed to have power, it is considered beautiful, regardless of aesthetic assumptions that we would make outside of the game.
Right.
Which is particularly intriguing to play with.
Mm-hmm. That also makes me think too about kind of the like the guilds and the guilds of like craftsmen and stuff. So if something is really beautiful, we could say it's been well made or well crafted. And if something's kind of like cheap and shoddily put together, maybe it just automatically has less power. If
I can make one quick reference point to that'll be useful for this, I think. I was talking to my daughter today about, for some reason I had gotten this notification on looking at YouTube about stuff about Chris Cornell. And was looking at a couple of covers of Black Hole Sun. So Black Hole Sun is a particular kind of aesthetic that traditionally, I think, people who like, the real quote real music, right, which wasn't grunge, would have not reacted well to it. And not only was the music itself as presented have its own beauty and power, but if you ever heard, I was talking with Garlic Tofu about this, Norah Jones' cover, which was done only a few days after Chris Cornell died, of that song of Black Hole Sun, you can see how much incredible layering work is done within that song that she draws out through her particular cover of it. It is stunning. It's the best cover I've ever heard or seen. And so that to me is also part of this, Brandon. That's what you're saying makes me think of, is the idea that it's also a matter of pulling forth demonstrating the aesthetic quality of so many things that we do not see as such, right, until they are presented in a particular way. And so it slows down the process of our judgment in favor of letting it come forth organically as we listen or watch or see or somehow engage in a thing. So anyway.
Cool.
Also, thank you for letting me know that Nora Jones covered Black Hole Sun. I need to look for that now.
Incredible. Yeah.
Well, chat, if your needs do not require you taking most of our break to get up and or move around, I would invite you to go and listen to that.
Go listen to the cover. It's on YouTube. It's amazing.
Because that sounds pretty rad. I am going to keep myself from doing so because I have GMly duties to attend to. But we are going to take a quick break so that we all who are playing can, attend to our various needs, hydrate, so on and so forth. And we will be back with the rest of our session 0 for Valloward, a Court of Blades campaign, in just a few minutes.
See you in a bit. All right, welcome everybody. We are back, and let me just move from the break screen over to, I think we're back. Oh, no, let me go back to the map screen so we can see what we were working on there. So welcome back to Court of Blades. I'm going to kick this over to Mike, but I'm just going to let you know, as I let the folks know in Zoom chat, that I just went and watched the Nora Jones cover again during break because it's that goddamn good. So just want y'all to know. It is so good. Okay, Mike, back over to you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back for more of our Session 0 for Valloward, a Court of Blades series. This is a special event series on brought to you by Speculate, and we are very grateful to a couple of Drakes, aka Shawn and Navi Drake, the designers of Court of Blades, who have been amazing to work with and provided us with a lot of support for this game. And it's fun to kind of play with their tools as we make our own sandbox and make them fit together. So the next thing for us to do is to figure out what house is going to be the kind of, where are we based? Who are we serving? This is kind of like deciding the play set, because each house has its own vibe mechanically. That I conveniently, we made 6 major factions that kind of line up with the 6 major factions of Court of Blades, which is magical. But we can also adjust there. What I would like to do is figure out what set of mechanics we want to use for the house, because it has its own special abilities that it'll give you and special upgrades and other particulars. I had previously shared a preliminary list going, okay, well, I think they line up XYZQ. I'm going to put a slightly modified version into Zoom chat, and then I'm going to talk through it.
And on the character keeper sheet, Mike, are we over now on the house sheet, would you say?
Yes,
okay.
The house sheet.
All right.
Thank you. So I'm going to walk through these very quickly. So the first name is going to be the name in our world, and then I'm going to say what mechanically I'm associating them with. So House Corinne, I had associated with Lavelle, and the text from the game, it is their business to know everything about everyone. And the Corinnes are the major users of the Plentifruit. They split off from House Vorster, and I will go to Lavelle in the game book. Brandon and I talked this through in our world building stream, and seemed like we had reached a decent point with this. Why is search not working the way I want it to? Please let me search. Sorry, I just had to rebuild this computer to a small degree.
Yeah, I'm glad it's back and functional for you now.
Which is basically meaning that my search function in this PDF is not working for some reason. That's bad.
Coterie and house creation is on page 98, and Lavelle in particular starts from page 115.
115?
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. So So Lavelle's words are farsight and foresight. They are gossip mongers of wealth and taste. Everyone in Ilrian talks. From the twist to the palace, words drift in scores of tongues. Whether by guile or by magic, they all make their way to the ears of House Lavelle. So this version of the Corinnes is, they are the gossip mongers. They have the oracular thing. They are social busybodies. They know everything about everybody. A House Lavelle game is going to focus on secrets and overcoming obstacles with secrets and discernment. And your primary resource will be intelligence. House Vorster I tagged to House Battalia, which is the old house of martial valor. Battalia for me has big BBC Three Musketeers vibes. a lot of combat, a lot of physical adventuring, scrambling over rooftops, protecting people from assassination attempts, overcoming obstacles with honor or tradition. If we wanted to lean into the history of Valloward as a city founded by veterans and praising bravery and martial valor and self-sacrifice, that would be Battalia, and we'd focus on House of Worcester.
Mike was going on the roof, and I'm like, "Go on."
Me too. Sorry.
Okay, cool. House
man.
Fairest. I'm tagged to Bastien. These are the champions of the people. They have some of their special moves might be recognizable to people who follow U.S. politics. Special abilities like "Not me, us," or "Stronger together." Bastien are very much if there is a DSA in Ilrien, it's House Bastien is them. So they're very overcome an obstacle with audacity or unorthodoxy. Their popularity with the people gives them an advantage in transport. A lot of their stuff is about having a good relationship with the everyday people of the city. They are somewhat, there's kind of an anti-establishment house. So if we want a game that is about the establishment of this kind of great dance competition of houses, Bastien is maybe a little bit of a counterplay because of the way that they are framed, even mechanically, but not necessarily to that same degree in our world. House Sapphire is the name that I gave to the Circle, which was the kind of more lake creature cult version of the magic-y house. So Corvetto are mysterious, tyrannical, and feared. A house a house that runs on spite, I think is in one of the write-ups for Corvetto. Our version of Sapphire, would be much more this is a little bit like playing a cult crew in Blades. We'd be leaning into probably that end of the mystic stuff, or it would be aesthetically around you all as the members of the household were doing that kind of stuff, is the way that I thought about it. House Greymist. Greymist were the merchant powerhouse that used earth magic to raise a whole palace, kind of all at once after the big earthquake. They are tagged to House Erlanda or Erlanda, the most powerful merchant family. And this is basically money, 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 money. I have money, therefore I get to do what I want. You buy people, you buy influence, you buy your way to whatever you need. House Lironti are the Rontists. Rontists were the other archipelago nation or group that tried to conquer Valloward and lost. And so I have Rontis or Ronti as the second biggest nation in this archipelago, but one that is specifically vulnerable to weather catastrophe. And so the largest population of non-Valloward but archipelago refugees are from Rontis or Ronti. Mechanically, they are House Almari, fearsome mercenary princes from across the sea. And so it's the idea of they're a little bit apart, but they have been here long enough that they've kind of adapted to this place. We can also have, if we're really interested in that insider-outsider, we can pick one of the other nation chunks if that angle is really exciting. I feel like I heard some inclinations, but I wanted to get through the whole list. How are folks feeling about which house vibe is interesting?
I would say, House Fairest is kind of cool, champion of the people, but to me, it would either be House Corinne, knowing everything about everyone, or House Forster. My character, I feel very much is going to be I talked about being anti-bullying. This is a kind of swashbuckling, anti-bullying, and very much in the, I mean, everything you described about it, I'm just like, yep, scramble over houses, do the, yep, sounds good. Plus I get to do this and also actually be noble and honorable about it. Yes, please. So for me, like that one wins going away, but I also like House Corinne because the idea of knowing everything about everything, that everyone, that's very interesting to me too. The other ones are less interesting to me for different reasons, but those two personally, House Corinne and House Vorster, with Vorster as my number one so far, is what I personally would say. But
Okay. Premee or Brandon?
Yeah, very same. And for a lot of the same reasons, not just the idea that we're obviously not going to be a bunch of like himbo musketeers running across the landscape.
No.
But I do like the idea of being allowed some swashbuckling and solving mysteries and trying to be honorable and noble about it, and feel like we've got some traditions to uphold. And I also feel like I wanted to do House Worcester because of my character as well, because on a micro scale, probably feeling a little bit chippy that they split off from House Corinne, so that there's already some sort of interesting inbuilt dynamics if we're part of the splinter rather than part of like the main house. So I don't know, House Forster gets my vote, and I would like to climb on a rooftop and stab somebody.
Cool. I think that part I can facilitate for any house.
The whole campaign is just Premee and me on roofs stabbing people. Brandon's character's like, "Yo, can you come down?"
Let's stab him.
Like Marie and Brandon, like, "Can you come down here?" We're like, "No, just bring them up here, and then we'll stab them once they get up here."
We'll just stab them. Yeah.
Somehow every errand is me jumping between like rooftop chases and sword fights.
I mean, we can have different kinds of roofs, right? Like sloped ones, flat ones. Like there's all kinds of roof options.
And then like ballroom back room intrigue for Brandon and whatever Marie ends up being interested in, just based on what Brandon has expressed interest in. But now I'll actually let them say what they think about houses.
So, the thing that I think ultimately I'm so very, very intrigued by, and the reference that I was going to make was actually an anime reference, but then I totally forgot this character's name. There's a character in the anime Bleach, right? Who is a member of the division of Soul Society that is made up solely of martial fighters, who hates the fact that he is in this division because he wants to do beautiful things and thinks that just getting into fistfights is not beautiful, and he's surrounded by brutes and doesn't understand why the fates put him in this terrible position of always having to be physical, and he just wants to be beautiful and artistic at any possible opportunity, and I want to be that guy.
Yeah, if you want to, you can be the key or the eye of Hospitalia, where some of your colleagues are more scrambly, skirmishy, dueling folks, and you are providing a subtler perspective.
I like this idea a lot, because I was actually thinking about being an eye or a coof, but we'll get to that point when we actually talk character stuff. So,
and what we can also do is, it seems like there was a fair amount of interest in House Corinne, so we can arrange the order of which house is which, so that y'all can interact with people from House Corinne a lot. I would probably put them 2 steps above you, where they are probably going to always be higher tier than you, at least for a while, so they're a good challenge. And then you can have ongoing relationships and like rivalries with people in that house, or maybe uneasy alliances and things like that. Okay. That sounds like we should lock in House Vorster for our coterie.
Somewhere Marie's like, any house but Vorster, any house. I want to spend the whole time in the basement, not stabbing
Marie.
People.
So she can spend all our time in the basement sharpening our swords.
Right, and then tossing them up to us in the roofs.
And then tossing them up to us. Swashbucklingly.
Yeah, swashbucklingly, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So, House Vorster, you will get to pick a house strength So House Vorst or House Battalia, and I'm just going to say Vorster whenever. The unique XP trigger for Vorster is overcome an obstacle with honor or tradition.
Hell yeah.
So I'm going to put that in.
We need the meme of that girl. How about both? Why
Yeah.
not both?
The strengths of the house. Let's see. Where did I put that? Strengths. The strength always has the house always has a strength in force. So basically, like putting boots on the ground to be able to fight. There are, however, there are 5 types of house strengths. Supply, which is like quartermaster strength. You know, you can feed people, you can supply people, you have various gear necessary. There is force, which you have. Transport, which is the ability to move people and stuff throughout the city and throughout the island. Wealth, you just have the money to do what you want to do. Magic or intelligence. Your house will get 2 strengths. Force is locked in, and then you get 1 other strength.
So run through those other 4 again quickly, Mike, if you don't mind.
So supply,
Yep.
transport,
Yep.
wealth,
Mm-hmm.
magic, or intelligence.
Wealth sounds useful because it can probably hire people who can do the other things.
That's true. What's supply again?
Supply is like specific material. So rather than I can buy the horses, it's you already have the horses. You already have a bunch of food in a granary somewhere.
See, I dig that because I like the idea that Vorster has this. My thought is that this is a house that does rest on its history, right, to a positive degree. The idea that this house does not give in because it hasn't given in. I'm starting to feel garlic like I'm playing a triangle strategy again. But like this has got elements of that. And so having something which would be traditionally part of what the house does in terms of like material availability. Because the only problem I have with wealth is it feels like they'd get down and dirty too much, which doesn't feel like them. You know what I mean? Like that. I mean, it's not that I mean, maybe they have like old money and I'm sure they're not like destitute, but I have this image that it's not, you know, but I could certainly be convinced the other way, but I just had this image of maybe supply. I don't know. I don't know what the supply would be, but.
Yeah, supply sounds useful, but I was also going to ask, so if we don't pick magic as a strength, we can still use magic, right? Or...
Yes. So one of the playbooks is the knack, which is the magic specialist. And any character can have the action channel, which is the primary action you would use to do any of the types of magic of this setting. If magic is a strength for the house, there is infrastructural support for you to do magic. And if you have a plan, we're like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a magic ritual that is going to open a tunnel that will let us go under somewhere and do X. And magic was a strength of the house, you would get a bonus for that plan. Okay. So they specifically show up where when you are about to do an engagement in your role, you go, okay, does one of the strengths of the house help us here? Like really advance our plan. And if so, you're going to get a bonus.
Okay, so then supply sounds pretty useful there.
Yeah, so like with force and supply, if like you're getting sieged, you're in a really good spot, right?
Yeah, and I was about to say, transport sounds useful, but at the same time, we're not on a like giant island.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we can probably manage transport, or I don't think it's going to be a hideously terrible obstacle realistically in gameplay. So yep. I don't know. I think, I might pick supply over wealth then because I bet none of us is poor. So
yeah, and as retainers of one of the great houses, y'all are like economically you're in a good situation while you're retainers. There is a system for basically setting yourself up to be able to retire well.
Quality health insurance, that kind of
by banking,
yeah,
basically influence and favors.
Okay.
So
very much like our current health insurance system in the United States.
So we're saying that the retirement plan isn't to get eaten by the thing in the lake, or
The retirement plan is to have by the time we're done stabbing people on roofs, to have enough to retire with new roofing material. Like I
Okay.
put
And
new
like
slate on there.
ways to like fix our knees because they're gonna be bad after all the
That's right.
scrambling around on the roof.
New improved knee pads and
Pads,
braces. Yeah.
massage
So-
therapy for our back.
Some of the drinks are watching this VOD like, what are you doing with our game? We're just like, listen, all right.
We're weirdos.
Sorry.
So you get a physician. Some houses get a physician and some get a basically magical healer. So this means that healing physical injuries will be easier for you because of the staff physician. And the base ability that we get is duty first. Your retinues heal at double the normal speed. So basically, if you get a group of kind of lower ranking retainers that are working for you as a retinue, and they take harm, they will heal at double the rate.
Because we just order them with their history, right? We're just looking at like, do you realize 100 years ago that 50 of you were all decapitated and they all put their heads back on and went on fighting anyway? They're like, yes, sir, sorry. They all stand up and like, we just demand that they heal.
In a game of Court of Blades that Shawn Drake ran for the network actual play, they played Battalia and they had a retinue of courtiers. So they were scrappy, and then they had courtiers to go and handle like some of the social stuff, which was interesting.
I got it. That's cool.
And you can do that balancing out of like, oh, okay, we're good over here. How can we handle some other aspects? So you get duty first for free. And then you'll get one special ability. The special abilities for Battalia are on page 109 if you're looking at the PDF, and I can talk through them. Deterrence. Each PC adds +1 action rating to command or maneuver, so you'll get an extra action. So you have 8 to start, but one of them would have to be in this thing. Fortified. Each PC gains +1 load when going discreet before they are considered loaded. So you basically can carry more gear without being really obtrusive. Ironclad, each PC gains +1d to all body resist rolls, so you have an advantage in resisting physical consequences. Just Cause, the house trusts your intuition. When the coterie does the right thing at a cost to themselves, everyone marks 1 XP, and you take 1 less exposure in that errand. The Old Guard, people are inclined to believe you are acting in the best interest of Valloward, rarely questioning your motives. Gain an additional XP trigger. Did we protect Valloward or her interests? And then the last 2 are Choose Your Ground. When you prepare for battle, you may pay 1 influence, which is kind of equivalent to coin. You will gather influence for doing errands. For each of the following, the ground does not allow ambush. You are difficult to reach. You are surrounded by friends. You basically get to establish advantageous terrain for an engagement or for a battle. And the last one is upon our honor. All deals you make are public knowledge and inviolate. Gain +1 influence when you keep your word. If another house goes back on a deal with you, they lose face. And what they lose a clock tick on their house advancement clock. A tick on that clock is a very big deal.
I like that one.
So there's some stuff that's more micro level. There's some stuff that will really let you shape the fiction, like Choose Your Ground.
So I'm inclined to think, starting out in particular, we're going to need as much cover as possible for any physical engagements that we might get in. Because we're probably going to get into a lot of them very early. So we probably either need deterrence or ironclad.
So deterrence is you're better at doing things, command or maneuver. Ironclad is the bonus to resistance. Here, I can also put the text of all of these into our Valloward general chat, if it's easier to refer to text.
The ones that I like the best from that are Just Cause, although that's it maybe feels a little meta to the game because of what's going to be good for our experience, but like narratively it kind of works. On my honor, I like the idea that our deal is in Violet because I think that creates an environment where we're less likely to have people, like if we're smart about it, we're less likely to get people ambushing us and doing things which might lead us, Brandon, into the situations that, you know what I mean, like we need for that. And the other one is Old Guard, because I love the idea that like Old Guard is something that we do to sort of protect the people of Valloward. And it just feels, I don't know, it feels very much in that kind of the same kind of mode. You're probably right that physically those things, Ironclad and the other one that you mentioned, are probably good in that regard, but I don't know. I love the idea of, again, the sort of Old Guard, like we were here when Valloward was formed. We were here with you, that sort of thing. So, but I'm again not married to any of it.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, on a narrative level, I also like the Old Guard. Not only because it gives us the opportunity to gain XP very quickly if we play our cards right anyway, and then just lean into something that will make us beefier when the matter arises, but I like the idea narratively of us playing either people who have been serving Ilrian's best interests so well that we are gaining XP on a regular basis, or people who are consistently struggling, but people still have faith in us because they know that's our job.
Yeah, my two choices probably would have been, again, kind of mechanistically motivated there. So either deterrence because it looks useful, or the Old Guard. And I kind of looked at Upon Our Honor, but what I don't like about that is all deals you make are public knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want everybody knowing our business.
It's true.
Even if it's considered inviolate. I would rather just not have people hassling us when we're going about our business and just people being like, oh, it's those guys. We trust them. It's okay. They're probably acting in our best interest, and we don't have to pry into what they're doing or know what they do or stop them and question them if we're nosy people. I don't know.
That's logical. We can't make any back alley deals and just be like, this deal that we've just made. This is, just echoes through the streets.
You just have a herald following you around.
Yeah.
And so it was declaimed upon the,
It was witnessed that the Forster has signed this contract. Like, nope.
Yeah.
That was none of your
business. It's like
business.
walking around with like a personal like Twitter account. Like as soon as we make a deal, everybody knows about it. So yeah.
Literally sending out birds to do that.
Yeah.
Premee, you said that aloud and I physically got sick.
Oh, sorry. Like our Twitter is actually like a messenger pigeon, and it carries tweets.
Twitter, no.
So yeah, my two picks would probably be Deterrence or Old Guard, but again, I can be silly.
I think Old Guard to me has more flavor that will inform the fiction. In terms of that, people are inclined to believe you're acting in the best interests. PCs in Court of Blades are not as squishy as PCs at the beginning of Girl by Moonlight. So one action dot is not as much of a difference as it would be in maybe some other games. But
so then we overlapped on Old Guard, I think. I think we all said that was one we could go with.
Taking that at the beginning maximizes the number of chances you have to be able to use it. Okay. And none of this has to be written in stone. I'm going to be conferring with Marie between now and when we play again so that we get her input. Why is this not working? Just work. Okay. I'm just going to type this in and I'll come back to it. So you also get 2 upgrades. There are special Battalia upgrades, which I will put into the Discord. And the upgrades also start talking about factions. Based on the time that it is, we may do the coterie sheet and then talk about playbooks and then make characters between this and next stream. Because I also want to make sure that when we do character bonds, we have all 4 characters present. So that all of the characters are interconnected with one another.
Okay.
So these are upgrades that are available only to your house, but there are also other upgrades that I will talk about. So Vigilant, the coterie gains access to detailed maps of old smugglers' tunnels and catacombs. You know every avenue of entry into the city and how best to defend them. Incorruptible, your retinues and colleagues all gain the loyal treat. They will never take a bribe. They will never turn on you. They will accept death before dishonor.
Hell yeah.
To the last blade, because it says to the last man, but blades can be of any gender. When you hire a retinue of blades, it functions as 1 tier higher. So if you get a squad of sword people to back you up, they are going to be even better. And the last one is Thoroughbreds. You are granted access to the house's stables. You can get anywhere in the city much faster than your rivals, and few can stand against a charge of Vorster Chevaliers. So that...
I'm obsessed with tunnels and ruins, and I would really like Vigilant. But
the only thing I thought
that's just
about
one of
that, I like that, but the only thing I thought about that was, doesn't it feel like more of a Corinne thing than like Vorster being like, we will find them through the tunnels. Like I'm not saying that we have to do everything, but I mean, I also love tunnels, so I'm down with that. What was the one, I mean, the one that was like, they will, I mean, just in terms of not just narratively, but usefulness, the fact that they will never take a bribe, they will not, like, man, that solves so many issues that we never have to worry about that. Like, at least our house is fine, like other people's houses or whatever, but
that does sound useful.
You know, usually we get 2 upgrades though, right, Mike? So we can do the tunnels, we can do the tunnels, and we can get the,
let me do a quick overview of the universal upgrades.
Okay.
Those are going to be, if anyone finds the universal upgrades page and can shout it out, I would be grateful, since my search power is limited here.
Let's see. Oh, there it is. Lost my folder.
I think that is on page 127.
Okay. So one of the things you can get with upgrades is those retinues. So you can, 127. So there's a set of upgrades that are quality, which is basically your gear of this type is higher tier, higher quality. Documents, gear, so like burglary and climbing gear. Implements, arcane implements. Supplies, tools or weapons. You can have superior training facilities for mind, body, or spirit. You can have a retinue or a colleague. So a retinue is a group. A colleague is one specialist. And retinues and colleagues can be of a small subset of types. You can have private apartments where you have living space in the house compound, rather than you live somewhere else and work here and are maybe more vulnerable there because it's not secure in the same way. Hidden exit, you are given knowledge of a hidden exit from the house. Your hummings and goings will not be absorbed by rivals. Workspace, you have dedicated workspace for projects. Ritual space for rituals, more effect if you do rituals. A private library, which is good for gathering information. Arcane wards, protecting you from eavesdropping or like magical interference. And dedicated transportation, you have a personal coterie vehicle, land or waterborne, and the crew to pilot/drive it. So we do have the sunken district. There is a chunk of the island that is more like watery, inland watery. So if you wanted a boat there, or like a boat crew, or a personal carriage, or some other kind of like very fancy, what if Renaissance Art Deco, like proto car magic, something like that. And you have to get out and push it, and then Florence and the Machine starts doing a cover of Stand By Me.
Yeah, it's so hard to pick if we don't know kind of like what we're doing and what would be useful, which I guess is the point of picking now, so that we can shape the game. But
I mean, if we pick, that means that we're shaping the kind of game that we
Yeah.
want to start this session being.
Yeah, I'm not going to say, they took dedicated transportation. I'm going to make sure they never get to use it.
Let's hope not.
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Like Brandon said, these are also votes for what do you want the game to be.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and so yeah, in that case, dedicated transport sounds cool. Getting better equipment sounds cool. Having our own private living space, I think, might be less useful because I don't want to stay inside much anyway. Hidden exit. The stupid Koreans are going to be spying on us all the time. Like, it would be useful to have something where we can get in and out, but how much are we going to use it? Hard choice. I do like having nice stuff. Like in my last Blades in the Dark game, like our stuff kept breaking all the time. And we also got a bad batch of smoke bombs that caused everybody to hallucinate. Like it was a train of like 600 people or something. So
Oh no.
I don't know. I don't know. Brandon, what do you think?
So, to qualify, we get 2 upgrades total.
Yes. So, unlike in Blades, a retinue or a colleague is 1 upgrade. So you could get a retinue, and you could get the hidden exits.
But that means that if we took a coterie upgrade and a universal upgrade, that would be it for now.
Correct.
Right. So the only thing as a result that I think needs to be considered is that if we were to take incorruptible, as Greg implied, it would not be useful until we got a retinue.
Correct.
So we'd either have to also take one now, or perhaps leave incorruptible for later. Other than that, I think personally, in terms of overall upgrades, 1, because we're getting in a lot of fights, it would be particularly useful at some point to get training in body, so like we are always as beefy as we need to be, and like we dedicate our own effort to learning everything else. And personally, from the Vorsta upgrades, I really do think that Vigilant is actually kind of not only mechanically useful, but I think that it's narratively worthwhile to say the people who constantly have to go out of their way to defend the local citizenry should know how to get to places very quickly, even if they do not have vehicles. Because if they don't get there very quickly, then things will go very poorly. I mean, Thoroughbreds also works very well in that regard, and I do think that Thoroughbreds is actually more flavorful, but I also do very much like tunnels. And I think that would be, like, imagine getting in a sword fight in the catacombs. Doesn't that just sound really cool to you? sounds
Yeah.
cool to me.
And also because of what we've said about the like the history of this place, what kind of interesting information or ruins or artifacts or magical wards or creatures or spirits or ghosts or deadly lakes of sulfuric acid or whatever could be in these tunnels that we have access to and maybe the other houses don't have access to. Maybe this is a place for us to get secret information, special advantages, places to hide, places to fight from, places to fortify with our supply.
Especially since we've already established in world building that some of those tunnels are those big magic tunnels by the mountains.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something to learn there. I think that's really cool.
I think that's cool. We're curious people. We're curious coterie.
So I can kind of pencil in some options.
Because I know that we will also need to ask Marie whenever the internet allows.
Yeah, and since Greg has stepped away.
Idly, it just occurred to me, is that a Canada thing? Does Marie live in Canada?
Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't live in the same area of Canada as me, though. We're like thousands and thousands of kilometers apart, I think.
No, it just came to mind because wasn't there a major power outage?
Major internet outage that also affected 911 and like credit card machines and ATMs and stuff like that. I luckily wasn't affected, but like millions of people were.
Because it just occurred to me, what ISP does Marie have?
Because we're losing people tonight at like an alarming rate. This is we're already
yes, Greg is
down.
Greg has returned. Yes, welcome back. We were worried that you were never returning.
Sorry, no, I apologize. There's stuff happening outside the house that I do attend to, so apologies.
Okay.
Yes.
So, what of the upgrades did you hear, and what are you thinking?
To be perfectly honest, I had to step away before we did the other. What are the ones that people are sort of thinking about right now?
So there's the maps of tunnels and catacombs one.
Right.
There's the retinues and colleagues are loyal. Brandon.
Oh, I heard those ones, but I mean, like, you were going through universal ones, I thought, or something.
Sure. There's basically training upgrades where you get 2 XP instead of 1 if you do a train action.
Okay. 1
of those each for mind, body, and spirit. There is actually getting the retinue or the colleagues where, you might have a specific person who's a really good spy who reports to you within serving the house. Or if nobody is a Bravo, then maybe you have a cohort who's a Bravo, like a dueling specialist. Okay. You could have improved quality for documents, gear, implements, supplies, tools, or weapons, the kind of in the blaze in the dark, like gear categories things. Others are private apartments. Basically, you have living space in the house. Otherwise, you live somewhere else and you're more vulnerable there. Hidden exit from the house. Workspace for projects. Ritual space to do magic stuff. Private library for gathering information. Arcane wards to protect against magic stuff. Dedicated transportation. You have your own vehicle and a crew to run it.
Again, a long car in Final Fantasy 15.
The types of retinues or colleagues are doctor, scholars, tinkers, magicians, alchemists, courtier, con artists, spies, and socialites, wayfinder, sailors, carriage drivers, and couriers, fox, scouts, infiltrators, and thieves, or blade, killers, bodyguards, and roustabouts.
Well, I like the spy one, and I like as I mentioned, I like the incorruptible one. Those are my 2 favorites of those.
to use incorruptible, you would also need to take a retinue or a colleague. Otherwise, it doesn't have any mechanical effect.
But
right?
the colleague works as a spy, right? The colleague could be a
Yes, but
spy.
if you take incorruptible, but then don't take either a retinue or a colleague, there's no one to be incorruptible.
Right, but I'm saying, like, can we do incorruptible colleague and the colleague is a spy?
Yes.
Hell yeah. In our own incorruptible spy. He's the dude that can't be stopped.
Yeah.
He's like Brandon, he's like Rumor, but he works for us. Like all the time, you know what I'm saying?
I like the idea of a colleague better than a retinue because I've spent about 8 years at my job trying to not manage people.
Sure.
So if we just have like one spy to manage that we can just like let out on a leash and he's perfectly loyal and he'll come back.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
that doesn't sound terrible.
Yeah.
And do you know how much I hate playing like smart, sneaky characters?
Yeah, I was going to say, what a shame. You get to be the person who knows everything. It's like, no, you don't understand. There's even more than that. It's even deeper. You get to be the Chris Christopherson in Blade, you know, like the dude that you're just like, this is the guy that, you know.
Okay, so incorruptible would be one upgrade.
I mean, it sounds like a dog dragon. He's more. I mean, dogs are also awesome. Sorry.
And then a colleague who is a fox, who would be scout, infiltrator, and thief. If you have somebody who is just the one, they would equally be capable as a scout, an infiltrator, and a thief.
That also really helps our house, right? Because our house is a little more like, you know, I mean, we do intrigue, but we're not all, you know, like searching the shadows necessarily. But this dude is like, probably this dude is probably like, all right, I understand. I'm going to search the shadows for you people.
Yeah, if your focus is spies, then you probably go courtier, con artist, spy, socialite, which also I would have no problem playing because it would be fun. And again, these will want to check in with Marie, so these are all penciled in, but I can pencil in incorruptible and cohort courtier. Incorruptible and cohort.
Is the follower named Greyshade? Maybe original, maybe.
Courtier, and they are automatically incorruptible. You're supposed to basically pick a strength and a weakness, or an edge and a flaw for those folks. Because of the time, I think let's come back to that. And what else do you get? So the last thing that we probably have time for tonight, because it's already 11, and I don't know that, well, we could easily run to midnight or past midnight at the rate that we're going. I don't know that we want to do that. How are folks feeling on time and energy?
Well, 2 hours earlier here, so I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm good, but you know, it's up to you folks.
I'm good. Do you know that Coke has caffeine in it?
I'm good. 1.5 hours from now. I'm
not unconscious yet.
Are you good, Mike?
I am good. Fortunately, I'm not the one who has to wake up early in the morning to take Oreo to Petco. That's Meg.
Ah, okay.
And she's already in bed. So when you choose your upgrades, the GM will describe 2 factions impacted by your choices. You begin with 2 influence, which can be spent to modify these relationships. One faction helped you get the upgrade and was somehow uplifted in the bargain. They are well disposed toward you. Take +1 status with them. At your option, spend +1 influence to repay their kindness and take +2 status with them instead. One faction was in some way diminished when you got the upgrade. They bear you ill will. Take -2 status with them. At your option, spend 1 influence to mollify them and take -1 status instead. So that would seem to me that whoever this courtier is, you either wooed away from someone else, or in kind of elevating or securing them, maybe you rescued them from some faction or whatever. But now here is where I will draw everyone's attention to the factions and crew clocks page, where I have, surprise, written a bunch of factions. I did a bunch of homework.
Factions and crew. Oh, there it is.
It's far to the right.
Yes, I found it. Wow. Look at this.
So where is my faction write-up? I guess it is in my Court of Blades, world building. So I'm going to go find that. Basically, we've talked about some factions already. I have some factions that are listed on the page there. And I have very short write-ups of a zillion factions. It's like 20 something. So I'm going to put this into world building. It's a text file. It's too big to be anything but a text file. Will this actually open for anybody?
Let's see.
Let me know if this works for you. Otherwise, I will have to split things up.
Expand. All right.
Because I can talk through the factions, but there's going to be too many to hold in your head at once.
Okay, so one of these we need to have made basically
these,
we improved with, and one of these we have pissed off, basically.
Somebody also benefited from this arrangement, and somebody was harmed or offended.
Okay.
And this gives you some starting relationships with factions. So among the factions,
I didn't offend the big crime family.
Yeah. Anything that's in parentheses, I don't have a name for yet.
You think criminals with a shtick is not a thing? Here at House Criminals with a Shtick, we are not.
Because I detailed one criminal with a shtick gang, which is the Eels, who run out of the Sunken District.
Oh my God, that feels very Dishonored, and I love it.
So factions include the Lake Creature, or the Vinters, or the High Florist, who oversees the pleasure industry in Valloward, or a group like some vigilantes who maybe are like ex-cops who don't like the police.
Okay, so here's the thing. So in terms of effectiveness or whatever, the City Watch would be very valuable to be an organism, to be a group that's not, you know what I mean? But I'm sorry. What were you going to say, Brandon? Sorry.
I just have one very petty idea in my brain.
Okay.
So I see that there's a faction named the Myriad Pens.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. I was like, but that, let's
Mike,
go.
I want you to read the description of the Myriad Pens.
Writers, poets, playwrights in the theaters that support them. Writers, actors, costumers, lighting, theater maintenance, receiving room for parties, etc.
What do we need to do to piss them off?
You'll piss them
off? That would be hilarious.
Wait, well,
to have the poets as our enemies.
What if the courtier was an actor?
Oh my God!
What if we stole their?
You stole a showstopper marquee actor.
Right in the middle of the run. Like halfway through the season.
That would be hilarious.
What would be hilarious.
They do to us?
How will they retaliate?
They will eviscerate you in prose.
I was gonna say they're gonna make fun of us. They're gonna
write diss tracks.
Yep.
They're gonna perform them in the public square. We'll be like, we're so insulted, but that rhymes really well.
I'm suddenly very intrigued by this. This is not me definitively saying that this is what we should do. This is me saying that this is something that I am very intrigued by.
One of the other steps I'm going to ask for at some point is I'm going to ask each player to flag 2 factions that you're interested in. And I will use that list as kind of the first choice of factions that I that I basically make plots with. So you don't have to have offended or benefited the Myriad Pens. Someone can say, let's have the Myriad Pens be involved here. I'm interested in them. So that's also an option. So other factions include monster hunters, refugees from Rontis, a beloved weirdo poet who acts as the master of ceremonies in the Veterans Square, which is the plaza. Or maybe the Dusty Vultures, grave robbers / artifact hunters / smugglers that utilize the subterranean tunnels created by the precursor civilization.
But did you see at the bottom of that list, the Brave Brush, a faction of artists, physical media, quote, absolutely messy, drama-filled group. Now that is basically like what happened if we pulled together the late 90s cast of Rent and just were like, all right, so we need you to pretend that you are actually putting on a musical, even though you're really visual artists. And then they're just going to be like, you don't understand the depth of what we're trying to do here in this thing. And then they paint graffiti all over the town of like, Vorstner sucks and like all these people, like, the brave brush. Mostly I'm just crazy about the names is basically what I'm saying.
I should tell you.
Exactly. How do you connect in an age where plenty fruit is available?
It's not so much that I'm a theater kid. I am the child of theater kids. So I inherited
So am I. So am I.
So yeah, and we have kind of a gesture toward the myriad pens. Other thoughts at this stage on factions that benefited and or were harmed by your hiring of this incorruptible courtier?
I'm always interested in academia. So
Mm-hmm.
the major university, maybe there's a lot of deranged professors or scientists or grad students or something. I don't know.
Why do you say maybe? Why do you say
maybe?
Maybe
the university is hiding something.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they definitely are. But
as someone who has survived a graduate program, I can identify.
I can't connect to this academic stuff that people talk about.
You know that one level in Bloodborne where all of the students, all of the professors, and even the books in the libraries themselves all try to kill you? It's like that.
So basically university.
I was going to say, I remember my PhD work. Yes,
yes, I remember
do.
my degrees. So that sounds about right.
I'm
Just
really
with more
lucky I
lab
didn't
time.
have to defend my master's thesis, otherwise I would also know.
Good times, good times. Now the real Dark Souls begins. So who did? But also the hiring of this person also improved. Oh my goodness, everyone just keeps gifting subs. Thank you. Okay, first of all, thank you, shout out for gifting Critwitch a sub. Thank you to Critwitch for gifting a sub to Premiesaurus. Thank you for doing that. It was very kind of you. Thank you, everybody. I want to note, by the way, that the music that we get when you get subbed is the Final Fantasy VII victory music,
right.
Since we were talking Final Fantasy VII. So, but anyway, so the hiring of this person, thank you both. So the hiring of this person also, though, as well improves our standing with a particular faction, right? Like,
yeah, so somebody gained status as a result. So I don't know if this is a faction that they were associated with. Was it a faction that hates the faction that's pissed off?
Okay, so what about this? So we've got, where was the one with the writers? It was the Myriad Pens, right?
Yeah, the Myriad Pens is basically the theater faction.
Assume that we pissed off. Oh my God, what just happened? Dragon
Spear.
Dragon Spear gifts 10 subs. What is going on? Suddenly Dragon's just like, bam. Holy cow. I'm sorry, I'll get back to that in a second. Thank you so much, Dragon Spear. Gifting a sub to Light and Passion, JLC, Flaos, is Terma, Koala Man, Proxima, Timaeus, West River Rat, Norse Foundry, hi Norse Foundry, and of course the Rising Tides. Thank you, Dragon. Holy cow. That's very kind of you. You must be very excited by this faction work that we're putting together. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry for Speculate folks who are like, why does that sound keep going off in my ear? People are really excited. So thank you so much, Dragon. My thought would be that the Myriad Pens, we hired the guy, right, from the Myriad Pens. And so the Myriad Pens, let us say, are pleased that we did this. And the weirdo poet, that is the voice, beloved weirdo poet, is pissed off because we clearly should have hired him. This is the dude who, through his poetry, was constantly giving everybody the information that they needed if we would just listen. And we never listened, and instead we picked up this hack, as he sees it, from the Myriad Pens instead. So I can imagine a scenario where we get benefits from the Myriad Pens, but the voice, who of course is going to talk us down to everyone and leave us a lot of bad reviews on Yelp, that one's going to be the problem. So I could see that. I mean, maybe that's too narrative and doesn't actually help us enough in mechanically, but that would be my thought.
Yeah,
I think it helps us if the voice turns out to not be who we think he is.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
If he's got some secret identity that we actually don't know about. But also everything that you said about him, I was like, we've gotten like rejection to our rejection letters like that. They're like, how dare you not pick my story? How dare you pick that other story that ran last week?
Yep, exactly.
I've never hated anyone more than I've hated you. And it's like, is this a good way to get us to work with you? No, but my work.
What matters is the work and the fact that I believe in it. Yeah, exactly. I really, really think it's good.
Yeah. Another way of thinking about this is like picking an initial enemy. Because if they start out at -2, they're going to go out of their way to make problems for you. And there probably will be a errand or a task assigned to you early on that has something to do with this faction. Whoever they may be.
I also love that there are factions of one. Like, the lake monster is a faction.
Right.
This guy is a faction.
He's by himself.
The lake creature and the Queen of Whispers are okay. Here's an individual who then has people that serve them, but the faction has like a singular leader. Now, maybe for the lake monster, they're tier 4 mostly on their own.
I have this image of the poet being happy, but the lake creature not. Like, we just go down and, how did you take that hack? You know what I mean?
I really liked his Romeo.
It was better when he was speaking poetry to me. Thank you, Prince Jester, for the tier 1 sub. Meanwhile, chat is just losing its mind over here giving subs away. Thank you so much, everybody. I do want to bring up Speculate, since Speculate is what we're here doing. So, that is another place to send your incredible largesse and generosity. I could see, and also good to see you, Terma. I could see, there is one part of me that thinks about the idea of the lake creature being connected to one of us in the house because it's so incongruous. But I feel like the problem with that is that it becomes, I don't know that all of House Vorster being like, we are honorable and occasionally we talk to the lake creature. Like, that doesn't feel quite right. So it'd have to be one person. And the problem then is that it becomes like, look at me, I'm over here hanging out with the lake creature. And it feels a little like, Mike could certainly handle it, but I have this image, it might be hard to not keep the spotlight on the dude talking to the lake creature, and by dude, I mean literally anybody, the person talking to the lake creature. So I guess, I don't know. The poet Myriad Pens thing is just me thinking about, it was really, I think it was Brandon's fault for talking about, or Mike's fault for talking about Shakespeare earlier, but now I'm just thinking about theater companies. But yeah, I don't know. I could be good with whatever, but I like the idea that there's I like the idea, I guess, that the factions have similar professions or jobs or something along those lines would be helpful. Wow. And now Wayman Wolf just gave 5 tier 1 subs. What is going on? What are all you people doing? I mean, I love you all.
I think
they're
this, conspiring to make a hype train.
I think that's what happened, is all of a sudden they got a hype train, which I think we've hit. They just hit like hype train of level 5. Wow. Okay, I'm sorry. That is completely disconnected from anything we're doing in this particular thing. I apologize. It just happened. So level 4 complete. Thank you all so much.
Anyway, yeah, I guess the other faction that I would find interesting is if I'm kind of thinking of like this as being sort of a cross between like the Godfather and like the Three Musketeers, the eels would be really cool to interact with in various ways, especially like involuntarily.
Like having like, oh, okay, here's a group of scoundrels. Like, here are people we're gonna have to fight and scramble around to keep them from doing bad things. For the household that y'all are serving, that seems like a great idea. Because you're like, oh, okay, we're picking you're picking your enemy. Oh, here's all the cool things we could do fighting and chasing eels, right?
They're slippery, they're hard to chase.
That's true.
Similarly with Dusty Vultures or Big Crime Family, which I don't have a name for. The idea here is that there's Big Trade Company and Big Crime Family. Big Trade Company is legitimized and more like the East India Company, and Big Crime Family is not legitimate and just as bad as the East India Company. Right?
Right.
Where Big Crime Family is more like mafia. In Court of Blades, they're the Bizzolato crime family. But we can also trade that out for something else. So there's a 4-tier uncouth faction and a 4-tier minor faction that's probably trade associated. as extra options. So we can also come back to this because this does not have to be set now. What I would say now is, so you're supposed to do spheres of influence and contacts. I think that's not as interesting to do live as making characters.
Yeah.
So we're going to come back to that unless anyone has any final thoughts on faction stuff, factions in the moment. I think we've kind of talked about some things we're interested in. So a thing we can start with on characters is me asking, does anyone have an inclination of which playbook you want to do? The
I kind of
playbooks,
want to be a Kuth.
the Kuth?
A little bit.
Cool. So the Kuth is a streetwise wild card, lucky or dangerous enough to rise from the gutter.
Yeah, the gutter part is kind of what I was thinking like yesterday when I remembered that this was happening.
Okay, cool. Greg or Brandon, any preliminary playbook thoughts?
I am leaning towards either the eye or the key.
Okay.
In particular, because I'm very like the thing that I know about my character is I definitely want to play someone who is a great deal more social, a great deal more like creatively or artistically minded.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who like leverages status symbols as an image of class a lot, and doesn't like getting in fights, but is good at it and really hates that he has to keep proving it.
So, because I played in my home game, we had an eye and a key, and after a little while, they figured out how to differentiate the playbooks because they have some overlap. For me, the eye is more rogue spy, and key is more mastermind spider socialite. So if you have a courtier that works for the retinue, you may get more overlap with them if you play an eye, and much less if you play a key.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that courtier thing can change.
I think I'm leaning towards key in that sense a lot.
You could take
like playing in that space.
If you were to do a key, you could get that 2 free assists per mission move that I used with Ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I dig that a lot. You all fight for me. I can help you do it well. Just don't ask me to actually fight with you.
Okay. So, tentatively, a key and a Kuth. Greg, what is sounding interesting to you?
So I've been looking through, and by the way, thank you. So that was a total of 20 subs that we got just during that time. So thank you, everybody. That was awesome. Really appreciate that. That was unexpected and lovely, as I said. So thank you. So here's the thing. I keep seeing ones and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do. So I basically want to play. All right, I'm going to give you the aesthetic first. And then I need to find the character that fits. I thought about the Bravo, but it's not. The Bravo, it feels to me, is too heavily armored and too much like, I don't want to play a tank. Almost a literal tank. But the aesthetic is, as I've talked about many times before, the highly underrated League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie. Dorian Gray is the aesthetic, especially the fight in the library. That and the quote, which is one of my favorite quotes ever, "I am an immortal, sir, not a gazelle." Possibly the greatest quote that I can think of. Anyway, that image, that look is perfect. And I don't, again, not the personality-ish, except this guy's a lot, obviously not a, without spoiling it, he's not Dorian Gray, okay, in terms of his internal personality. But that's the aesthetic. I want to be able to do a swashbuckler, an exceptional sword fighter, a flourisher, someone who is always, upbeat and optimistic and so on, but has a serious edge of danger, like a sword being pulled from its sheath. That's the image, that's the aesthetic that I want. So the problem is I look at these and I see like, so the hawk, but that's more of a hunter. I like the Bravo, but again, it feels too much like a tank. The knack is not really it. The kiss is not, no. The curse, no. Like, so, and I can't really get a sense of what the couth is. I mean, Premee already got that one anyway, but I can't quite tell.
I also kind of want to be a curse.
Okay. So.
Because a curse looks like a cool thing to be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. But I feel like, so right, a streetwise wild card. Well, I mean, I guess a Bravo is a dashing sword, quick of wit, and unmatched in combat. I guess that's pretty good. I just don't want to. I want to make sure that I'm not playing Venner. Right? I don't want to replay Venner Crace. That's all.
So the Bravo does have abilities that are about protection, but they are not necessarily protection by being a tank character.
Okay.
You can basically be a dexterity tank as a Bravo. Because one of the special moves is you may push yourself to accomplish a feat of speed or endurance that borders on the superhuman.
Okay.
So you can focus on the speed part. You can focus on, upon a needle, you are sure-footed and gain +1 effect when balance or grace is an issue, such as navigating difficult terrain or a dance floor.
Yeah.
Or a rooftop.
Or a rooftop. There you go. See? Yeah, now we're talking cooking with gas.
And with other of these, we can flavor them toward this character idea.
Well, I love the gap in the armor. When you survey, you may push yourself to find a weakness in an argument, gesture, or evasion and seek an argument. Yes, because I like the idea of this guy being a verbal fencer and an actual fencer, and can get underestimated because people are like, this is no, and I'm like, no. Do not underestimate. Especially when he sees oppression and bullying happening. That is a sword out. So that, yeah. Okay. As long as it's not one of those super armored, Italian guards of like that, then I'm all about it. So then the Bravo would be good. And so you can be couth or the curse, Premee.
I think I will still stick with couth because I keep thinking, again, this is a slightly chippy character with a chip on his shoulder about having risen from the gutter.
Yeah.
And he's got like a complex about it.
Yep.
Yeah. You making fun of me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's not exactly like a debonair, swashbuckling fop.
I get it.
He's dressed like one, so he should be one, but he's not.
He's very Ged in Wizard of Earthsea first half, who's just constantly yelling at it like, do you have a problem? You're laughing at me, aren't you?
I look like a clown to you?
You look like, exactly.
I make you laugh? I'm funny? Yeah, like that. But like polite.
Exactly. I dig it. Yeah, okay. That's perfect.
So that would give us a key, a couth, and a Bravo, and then whatever Marie decides to play. With each of those, if you're confident and want to lock that in, the first thing you can do is look at that special armor ability and tick that box, because every character gets the special armor ability for their playbook. And you get one other special ability. But after playbook, I'm going to actually direct us back to the Discord and look back to the nations. Which, let's see, where did I put that text? I thought that I had put that somewhere.
Yeah, that's right, Rock God. Basically, Dorian Gray aesthetic and Wesley from Princess Bride in internal personality. Yes, exactly.
Yep. So in world building, we have the heritages, and most of these I made up in the last week, and they're very subject to change at your leisure. Heritage is mostly an RP prompt. Mechanically, if you express your character's heritage, it will get you XP. So there's not like, if you are from Valloward, you get +1 to sway. Like that's not that game. But in Court of Blades, there are 6 heritages. So I tried to make 6 here. So if you want to be a local, choose Valloward. And I just kind of had that be like, that's what the description of people of Valloward are. So you're a local, the people are cosmopolitan, vivacious, and quick to trade jokes or draw steel. A lot of this text is the same text from Court of Blades. I just changed the names and some other bits. If you want to be from the region but not Valor Isle itself, choose Rontis. Denizens of Rontis and other islands of the archipelago share Valloward's vivacity and passion, but are more circumspect and community-oriented out of necessity, with a chip on their shoulder over Valor Isle's many blessings. If you want to be from somewhere old and established, choose Javalan, the former home of the Javalan Empire. This is where the veterans came from. Once again, a collection of infighting kingdoms, the Javalan fight over scarce resources, wield wrathful magics, and nurse ancient grudges. The constituent nations include Lund, Astrex, Demast, Yunghar, and more. That one is a little bit more made up by me. If you want to be from somewhere quote-unquote wild, choose Cello. They're widely considered nomads and wanderers with no quote-unquote homeland. They're discriminated against by some as being untrustworthy and fickle, but are eager to share a meal, a fire, and a story. So this is sketch of nomadic civilization to be ignored or filled in at leisure. If you want to be from somewhere quote-unquote strange, choose Marik. The Marik follow a strict religious hierarchy with cities and counties controlled by high priests. Their lands are rich with spices, salt, and they produce legendary textiles and poetry. Marik settlements are organized around extended family units called Mahal. That's from Mahala, which is a Central Asian thing. If you want to be from someplace romantic, choose Sevenai, a rich mining nation based in the mountains to the east of Javalan. The Sevenai were reclusive and near legendary until recent decades, when they took the fall of the Javalan Empire as license to expand, using strange magics and frightening devices to decimate armies and dominate trade. If there is a rival for the greatest city in the world, which is how Valloward is described in the lovely video that the Drakes made for us. If there's a rival, it is Open Hearth, a city at the base of a mountain and mouth of a mighty river, which has been open to foreigners to conduct trade. Sivanai culture is fiercely competitive, where basically I'm kind of stealing this from myself from the previous bit of writing that I did. So this is like other big deal current culture, and then there's some other bits up and down. This is all just so that y'all had options.
Okay.
So if you want to take any of these a different direction, that's fine. And mostly this is, how do you want to express being from X or being a person of X?
Mm-hmm.
So, before we began, I had picked your brain earlier, Mike, about the idea of playing someone with a disconnected heritage link to the indigenous population of Valor Isle.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody who is like the child or grandchild or great-grandchild of somebody who had moved before the decimation had occurred. We had specified that we were like 300 years out from the initial settlement of Valor Isle, so this might be even actually like 6 or 7 generations removed even.
Yeah, that's likely.
Who has essentially decided to return because some part of this is supposed to be their cultural birthright, only to discover none of this looks like the things that they're supposed to know. The parts that do look very destroyed, and essentially trying to like navigate how they feel about essentially witnessing a kind of colonialism that has already succeeded in this territory, but knowing that there is still something potentially worth engaging with in this space, and how fraught it might be to be a member of a community and still be valued by what is essentially the descendants of colonizers of that community.
Yeah, so I'm totally fine with that. Do you have an idea for a name that the character uses of, oh, I'm descended from X people or Y civilization? So that we can like name this precursor civilization.
A name just came to mind. Um, but I'm gonna complicate it a little bit.
Okay.
I like the idea that that the word that community had to describe itself is called the Dialta, Dialta. But Valloward don't use the word. Valloward use, like, you know how Aztec is not the word that you use to refer to Nahua people.
Mhm.
They use whatever is the Aztec version of the Alta, and I don't know what that is. I'll leave that up to you.
Okay. Yeah, because I think one option would be that their name is connected to the word we use for the magic, Ard, like Arden, Aarden, like, oh, they're the people of the earth, because some of the ruins that they found seem to be using the same magic.
I am kind of into that.
Cool. So yeah, if you want to have your heritage be Dialta, that's great, because you know the RP stuff that you want to do. So that's just the reminder to yourself. And it certainly creates some opportunities for very interesting stuff. Greg or Premee, any inclinations from the stuff that I talked about, or anything else on heritage? If you want to make up a whole different nation, that's totally cool.
Yeah, I kind of filled mine in already, and I just put Ilrian, but I'm just meaning this character is, he's born here, obviously. What I was picturing was kind of something like a Lucius Cornelius Sulla character. So he comes from what he thinks is like a noble family back in the Javellan Empire. He's kind of the last of his line. They've fallen very, very, very far in their fortunes, and he carries this resentment around with him because he thinks he should be a lot more powerful and a lot more influential and should have a lot more privilege than he currently has. He works for the house. He thinks, I should have my own house. Why am I part of their retinue? So he's loyal to the house, but he's also kind of chippy about it. Okay. And he feels that people are constantly talking down to him, and that they don't know his illustrious heritage because he's just from here. And most people probably in Valloward have stopped caring about those family distinctions long ago. But his particular family has always prided themselves in this special family line and been like, oh, back in old country, we were the shit, if we're allowed to say that. But that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I put Delirian because he's a local who wishes he wasn't local.
Yeah, and so if the text will let you switch over to Valloward, then that's cool. If not, then I think just in the box above heritage, above the word heritage, so I guess I'm highlighting it right now. If you want to type in just a little bit of that kind of bit that you gave me, just as a reminder to yourself.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I have to get the cat off my arm. Hang on. Get off me.
So in the box where you get to choose your heritage, if you just select if you just double click any name that is already on that list and just type whatever you want to type, it will be there. It will just be marked as invalid because it is not on the list, but it will still exist. Okay. And that won't change.
Yep, and I may be able to go into the guts of the spreadsheet and change so it doesn't give an error anymore. But yeah, so I guess Greg, what is sounding good to you for your character's heritage?
I think probably either Valloward or Seven Eye. Okay. I like the idea of the Seven Eye with being competitive and most renowned, ruling council, tumultuous. Although it's a little more strange, big, scary place. That I'm not sure that's exactly the vibe. Whereas I like the vibe is the sentence, the people are cosmopolitan, vivacious, and quick to trade jokes or draw steel. Like that's the vibe of my character. So in that sense, Vallowed would be right on in terms of the vibe, but we already have potentially a Vallowed. But I guess we are in Valloward, so I guess it doesn't matter. So Vallowed would be probably the best, I think, of this.
Yeah, and I think what I would recommend is in that text box, just highlight the parts parts of the character you want to express that you think are about being someone raised in the culture of this city state.
Okay. And then
that's your RP prompt that you're going to check XP from.
And where does that go in the sheet?
So there's a white box just above the word heritage. If you click and type into that on the kind of left hand.
Oh, I see it.
Yep.
Okay. And so above it.
Yep. Because of the way, like, it has text box, then explanation.
Yep.
Is the way that they're doing this part of the sheet. So that's that. And then there are backgrounds. So backgrounds, this is also mostly an RP thing. Academic, labor, law, trade, military, noble, underworld are the ones that are in the book to begin with. But ultimately, this is a text field. It's just about what do you want to highlight in what was who was this person before they became a member of this coterie. And so that you may draw on that and being like, oh, well, I know, I would know somebody who was in the same unit as me because I have a military background, that kind of stuff. So again, that's academic, labor, law, trade, and so that's like shopkeeper or merchant or craftsperson or shipping agent. So trade as a verb or the trades, military, noble, or underworld.
Also, just on heritage, did we say Ilrian is like Vallowed? Is that what we said? Okay, got it. Thanks.
And background, you should be able to do the drop down and have it actually fill in, but then add whatever text you want in the white box above.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody who has already figured out background, you can think about what indulgence your character has, what is the thing that they go to do to kind of recover from the high pressure, high intensity life of being a high status retainer to one of these great houses. Do you indulge in faith? Do you indulge in like an obligation to a community or a family? Do you turn to pleasure? Do you turn to stupor? Do you turn to gambling? And this is how you'll basically, instead of indulge vice, it's seek indulgence. And that's how you can regain stress or make the stress that you have go away so you can use more stress. And then if you have an idea of like a detail or the person or group you go to for that, then that can go in the text box.
Okay.
So with Chirakators, I guess I did not do the Bravo. The character sheets are supposed to have some action dots already filled in, but it looks like at least one of them does not. So I'm just going to zip forward. I am pretty sure that the Bravo gets 2 in skirmish and 1 in maneuver. So you'll tick kind of the first 2 boxes in skirmish and 1 in maneuver.
Okay.
For the Kuth, I believe that is wreck and sorry. So the Kuth gets 2 in consort and 1 in wreck for Premee, for your character Premee. and 1 in rec there. And then the key is this alphabetical? Yes, great. Is 2 in sway and 1 in tinker. You then get 4 additional action dots. No action can go above 2 in character creation. And you are encouraged to have 1 of those 4 be an expression of your heritage and 1 be an expression of your background. So it's like, oh, okay, like background as, background in military, maybe you would put it in survey to like read a battlefield. Or if you have a background as an academic, you might take it in study. And then the last 2 of the 4 extras that you get are wherever you like. If you, every different action you have at 1 or more in a attribute makes your resistance better. So Premee, if you've played Blades, resistance works like it works in Blades. And so a more well-rounded character is going to be able to resist consequences better in different circumstances. If you want to go all in on being like a physical powerhouse, then 1 each in several different body actions means that your body resistance is really good, and that's it. That's for somebody who wants to be the tank. But you can also be a social tank where, someone gets a consequence when they're trying to sway, and then you're the person who comes in to protect them. We're like, well, what my colleague really meant was
social tank.
So it's one dot for our background, and then 2 other dots.
1 informed by heritage.
Okay, 1 informed by heritage.
1 informed by background.
Okay.
And 2 at your leisure.
Okay.
So you should have 7 dots total, 3 that you started with and the other 4.
Yeah.
Oh, so we should be doing that part as well.
Yeah. I kind of started going ahead because I did not get the sense that anyone had questions on any of the stuff so far, and to give a little bit of runway for folks who are already sorted with anything. Does anybody have any questions either about actions or heritage, background, indulgence?
So what's the normal one for Valloward or Illyrian for heritage then, in terms of a dot that gets placed?
There is no one specific.
Oh, okay.
It's how do you think this is expressed?
Okay.
Like is the character's kind of Valloward heritage expressed in sway as their ability to like banter and persuade, that version of like vivacity and whatever, or is it a dot in survey, like reading a dance floor as well as a battlefield?
I think it's sway and survey. So we're talking like, so if I have, let's see, 2 in body, technically 3, I guess, because of skirmish, 1 in mind, or 1 in survey, and 1 in sway, then I have, that's it? There's
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 checks. You get 2 more for 7 total.
Okay. Can I put 2 ticks in 1? Like, could I, because sway would be the one I would do, or either sway or survey.
Yeah, you can have anything at 2. You can't have anything at 3 to start. And that's in individual actions. So you could have 3 different actions in body, but you could not have 3 in skirmish.
What's channel again?
Channel is do magic.
No. And command, I think I basically know, but
command is mechanically pretty much identical to command in Rebel Crown.
Okay.
So it's the intimidate action. It's also the lead a group action, or lead a group of NPCs.
Yeah,
thing.
no, that's not quite right. Okay, so then 3, so 2, 1 in maneuver, 2 in skirmish, 2 in survey, 2 in sway. I think that works.
Yeah, and so that to me looks like a character who is very good at a small number of things.
Yeah.
And less of a generalist. Now, every character can do every one of these actions. You don't have to have anything in channel to be able to do magic. What it means, though, if you have 0, is that it's more likely to take stress, or you're more likely to need help to be able to be more effective at that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think because the things that I have focused on, particularly survey and sway, mean that I'm quite good at the banter.
Mm-hmm.
But all kinds of different banter, right? That's the
Right.
idea. So, and I'm really good at drawing steel and, step into it. But tinker, nah. Skulk, maybe. Skulk's a possibility. What's wreck again?
Rec is, let's see if so one version of rec is, I'm going to set a bomb. Another version of rec might be, I'm going to take a sledgehammer to this carriage.
Yeah, no. Okay. Right. And then not command, not channel, not hunt, not study. So it would really, the only question would be if I did a skulk, study, or consort dot instead of one of these others. But I don't really see anything I would pull them off. Like, I think. Yeah.
Study is longer term, deeper analysis.
Yeah, no.
Survey is read a situation, predict immediate danger.
Yes. And I have and it synchronizes with my gap in the armor thing, which is what I'm gonna.
Right.
Because that's the other thing too. We have special armor because we all click that. Under that section, which of these, or do we get one of those other ones or not yet?
So for the Bravo, you would get one of the list that starts at House Guard and ends in Gap in the Armor. You could take a veteran move, but I wouldn't recommend it as your first one because that's taking an ability from a different playbook.
Yeah, no, definitely Gap in the Armor for sure. And that'll synchronize with survey. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Okay.
And if you all need someone to tinker, you'll just have to go find it for someone else.
Yep. So nice thing about working for a house is that if you really need somebody to do something that you don't have actions in, you can probably make that happen. But that is more limited than if you have somebody on the crew that can do it. But you are going to have a hawk, an eye, a knack, a kiss, or a curse to round out your retinue. Mm-hmm. Who may end up having some of those things that you don't. Does anybody have questions on actions or special abilities? Okay. Nope. So, if you are excited to do so, you can look at contacts, which is kind of toward the middle bottom left of your sheet. The names here you can 100% replace because these are Ilrian names and we can change them out. But the idea here is that this is a set of characters who you already know in some way, and you can just like invoke them at some point. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to go talk to, Tien, a temple acolyte, who I know. So you can replace those names. Everybody has one contact who is a member of the house. So you have some specific relationship with somebody who is a blooded or acknowledged member of House Vorster. So they may be a scion of that kind of the same line. They'd be somebody who was adopted in. They might be somebody who was promoted into the house for good service. It might be like some spoiled scion of the house. Or whatever, and they can be a positive or a negative or a neutral contact. If you already have an idea about a positive or a negative contact that you want to take, that's cool. You can do that. So from your contacts list, you can also decide those in play. You don't have to do anything with items or gear yet because of the type of game this is. And I want to wait on bonds until we have all of the characters decided. We maybe can do that on Discord, or we'll do it as like the first thing for our next session of play.
Okay. So I've changed one of the names from the Vincenzo or Vincencio to Cartagino, a religious advisor from my past.
Okay. Cool.
So we just pick one contact? from
So
that
you,
list?
you get one that becomes positive and gets the up arrow, and one gets the down arrow.
Okay, super. Yeah, that helps. Yeah. Thanks.
And so there's a little bit more of house stuff to do that ideally we can do when we can get input from Marie. I was going to ask for like other stuff about factions in terms of like what factions are you interested in, but that also works well to do off stream because it is almost midnight and that is pretty late for me. And I think we are at a pretty good place to end, but I will pause to see if anyone has any questions before we do so.
So what's our homework before next time?
So your homework for next time is to look at the faction list on the Factions and Crew Clocks tab and look at the write-ups that I put in that text file, if you can access it, and see if there are factions that are interesting to you, or if you have ideas of like, oh, I like this about X faction, but what if we did Y? Like some, modifications or replacements. And especially any faction that is in, the name is in parentheses, those are very sketched out, like very skeletal. So if you have an idea to fill in or replace those, then I would love to hear about that. And then from the group's input, I will have a list of factions that people are interested in, and I will use that to build my prep. Because the next, basically the opening of play for y'all will be, we'll probably describe in summary, like, oh, here's the first thing that y'all did as a group, which helps set your character relationships. And then it will be the beginning of a social season, and you'll receive a dossier of missions from your handler in the house, who has said, like, these are things the house wishes you to take care of. Do them kind of however you see fit, but see that they're done. And then that will kick off play.
Okay. And one of these contexts is positive and one's negative, right?
Correct.
So okay.
Yeah, and if you don't have any ideas about a positive or a negative contact right away, that's fine. We'll just detail them at some point. If you wait to select a negative one, you will eventually run out of other contacts, and somebody's going to have a negative relationship.
Nah, I got it. I know the negative up front.
Yeah, and again, on any of these contacts, change the name however you like. I think the names given are nice because they give a representative spread of hero types of names that show up in this setting, and we can do the same thing for ourselves. Okay. If there are no other questions, I think we can start wrapping up for the night. So I want to say thank you so much to everybody who is watching live with us here in chat at twitch.tv/ArvinElron. Thank you to the amazing folks who made a, I think, full-on level 5 hype train as we were going, which is a very cool thing. And thank you to my lovely players for walking through all this and doing world building and other fun stuff with me. And thank you to Navi and Shawn Drake, aka a couple of Drakes, the designers of this game, Court of Blades. They provided the very cool intro, like series trailer video that we used and ran before and can run after, depending on how tired Greg is, and who made the lovely overlays that we're using today. This is super fun. I am very sorry that Marie was not able to join us. Again, if this were not a streamed game, we would not have done session 0 tonight. We did what we did because I wanted to get some material. I wanted to get through some stuff. And we are all very busy people who it is difficult sometimes for us to schedule time together. And so I don't want to lose momentum. I'm going to confer with Marie a lot. We're going to refer to this material. We're going to talk in the Discord so that everybody gets input on all of the things that we talked about today. And so that the game that we play in August 19th, which is our next session that is scheduled, will be representative of what everyone is interested in and what everyone is comfortable with. So I want to say that on screen, on camera, to allay any fears that people may have. I will do what I can to make sure that everything works. And luckily, I have lovely folks to work with who I'm going to type. This is the outro order. Okay.
All right.
So yeah, now we're going to remind anyone or inform anyone who came later in the stream where you can find each of these lovely players and their work, and then we will say goodnight.
Hello everyone, it is me again, Brandon O'Brien, poet, writer, game designer, and all-around art fool from Trinidad and Tobago. Very excited to get into more of this game in the future, but seeing as that's happening in the future, I guess I will have to wait. You can find me on the internet at The Rising Tides, almost everywhere. You can find me especially on therisingtides.itch.io, where I not only have all kinds of games that you can presently look at and buy right now, but just recently launched the splash page for another project that will be coming up very, very soon, sometime later in the year, called Hero Revolution. So if you are into Kamen Rider or have no idea what Kamen Rider is and want to learn, look out for more information about that by checking out that page on my itch at any point that you fancy. Also, I have a poetry book. It's called Can You Sign My Tentacle? It's about the gods of the Cthulhu mythos coming down to Earth because they wanted Drake's autograph at one time. It is presently still up for an Elgin Award. So if you are a member of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Poetry Association and would like to see the thing win a thing, you can help me do that. And otherwise, it's a cool book that if you haven't read, I would ask you to read it.
Can confirm.
Get wherever you can get your favorite poetry collections. For everyone watching this right now, who's going to be at Gen Con, I'm going to be at Gen Con too.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be really rad. Apparently, I'm playing a game of D&D with other people who
Yeah,
will
you
be
are.
right beside me.
Yeah, you are.
So that's going to be fun. So long as you have gotten your vaccinations and are wearing your mask, please come to Gen Con so I can actually be surrounded by people that I like. So yeah, that's me.
First of all, I just want to say, Can You Sign My Tentacle? It's really, really good.
Yeah, it is.
And you should really definitely pick it up. And this is coming from me, who published a cosmic horror trilogy and knows about the mythos. Like, for real, pick it up. I mean it. Otherwise, I'll shake my tiny fist at you. Premee Mohamed, still here. Novelist, short story writer, scientist for my real job. Assistant editor at Escape Pod. You can find me probably a really unhealthy amount on Twitter at Premeesaurus, and at my website, www.premeemohamed.com. And if you are so inclined, I would love for people to pick up my recent Nebula award-winning novella, And What Can We Offer You Tonight? Because it is also up for a World Fantasy Award as of last week. And maybe you'll enjoy it. Thanks, everyone.
I have been your dancing master this evening, Michael R. Underwood, Mike everywhere except my byline. I'm one of the co-hosts of Speculate, along with Greg and Brandon. And if you enjoyed what we did here and think to yourself, I like these Speculate folks, they're interesting and do cool things with storytelling in actual play, then I would invite you to become a subscriber at patreon.com/speculate, where you can get bunches of extra things, including episodes where Brandon, Greg, and I talk about things involving TTRPGs, how to make them good, how to make them awesome, ones that are already good and awesome that you should check out. You could also get my GM prep from a previous series, or behind the scenes stuff and extra snippets for Fractal Spire, the other game that we have. It's very cool, and we would love to have you. That's me.
Good stuff. And also thank you, Mike, for, as usual, wonderful guiding us through this world and setting us up for all of this. I am very excited to be hanging out on roofs with Premee's character and stabbing people as necessary. But this is a great pleasure, and I'm very excited to have the whole crew back later on during in August 19th. And you folks know me already, but for the benefit of the Speculate listeners, I am Arvin Elleron on this Twitch channel, Gregory Wilson in real life, college professor and author, and just had a very successful Kickstarter for the second two books in my Grey Assassin trilogy, Renegade and Heretic, the last two books I should say in that trilogy, plus a Grey Shade RPG, and there will be a lot more where that came from as time went on. We also have multiple campaigns on my channel that are going to be part and parcel of the TTRPG experience in the fall. We'll have a lot more of Negocios Infernales from Carlos Hernandez and Claire Cooney. We will have CSE Cooney. We will have a new campaign debuting tomorrow called Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks as we record it, and other stuff like that. And of course, more amazing, cool stuff from Speculate. And yes, thank you for the incredible kindness tonight to the channel with the 20 subs. That's really, really nice of everybody. I appreciate that very much. But if you get the chance and you're interested and you're like, I want to know more of what these Speculate people do, definitely let me affirm what Mike just said, !Speculate, so you can get more information. And hopefully, if you are so inclined, support us over there. That would be much appreciated. And so I'm very grateful to my fellow players. Can't wait to see Marie here as well. And of course, to the Dancing Master. So I will let the close the Zoom chat down and wrap things up. But thank you to Mike, Premee, and Brandon. And I will see you all. I'll see Brandon next week in person, but I will see Premee and Mike very soon down the line. Bye for now. Okay. Zoom's like, would you like to update? I'm like, maybe later, Zoom. Maybe have a better time. All right. So that is going to do it for us for tonight. That was a lot of fun, and I am very much looking forward to seeing how my character gets involved in things. But I just immediately started thinking like the aesthetic. It's the Dorian Gray aesthetic. It's from League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's that kind of a thing. And I'm very, very excited to see how that all kind of plays out as time goes on. That's going to be awesome. But right now we are going to bail out of here. But for those who are not Speculate listeners and are just watching on the channel, you'll see more of Court of Blades, as I said, next month. But I do want to remind you all that I am also going to be premiering tomorrow Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks. We had our session 0 a few weeks back. I had a kind of off-stream session 0 for some folks as well. And so we will be beginning with part 1 of Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks, called The Last Command. And I'm very excited to be able to introduce that to all of you. That's going to be happening tomorrow at, I believe, 7 p.m. Eastern. Most of the time, those are going to start at 7:30 on Saturdays, but 7 p.m. tomorrow. So that should be a good time. And I am very excited for that, and very excited to share all of some of the new goodies. We have not the final video. I actually, because Peripheral Mike is the most awesome person in the universe when it comes to this stuff, has made a placeholder video, because we're still waiting for some original music which is coming our way. So as soon as we get that music, we will do that, and so you'll see that in August. But we have placeholder video, which is super good for a placeholder video, for anything, let alone placeholder video. So it's going to be cool to see more of that as time goes on. So that's what's going to be happening tomorrow. Then we'll be off, I believe, Sunday and Monday, and then on Tuesday, I will be streaming longer than normal, probably from 12 to about 4 p.m. Eastern. Have not yet decided exactly what it's going to be. Might be Triangle Strategy or something like that. I'm not sure. Then my GOG streams are canceled for both this coming Tuesday and the Tuesday after, because I'm going to be driving out to Gen Con starting this coming Tuesday, and I'm going to be driving back from Gen Con that following Tuesday. When I'm out there, I don't know yet how many streams I'm going to be able to do. I'm going to try to do at least one, which will be streaming, hopefully, the D&D live play event that's happening on Friday night, an adventure that I am in the middle of writing as we speak. But that, again, is going to be happening on Friday, and that's partially dependent on internet and all that other kind of good stuff. And then I don't know the rest of the time. Everything else is up in the air. Whether I'm going to be streaming on Saturday, I'm not sure. Whether I'm going to be streaming, sometime Sunday, Monday, I don't know. That's all very up in the air. But after I get back that following Tuesday, then things should all even out and be pretty normal. So that's the deal with that. Yes, he is a lovely human being. I totally agree with that. So that's the deal with that. But thank you all so much. Thank you again for the amazing generosity. It's about an 11.5-hour drive-ish, Rock God. So we try to take it in 2 chunks. But that's one of the reasons I canceled the GOG stream, because if I wrap up by 4 Eastern, if we're out of the house by like 5, it means we can basically put in like a good 5 to 6 hours of driving before we have to stop at the hotel for the kids, because we can't just drive forever. Yes, they could sleep in the car, but still. Do that. And then the next day we do the next part of the drive, and doing, a 6-hour trip or so over the course of, if we leave at like 10 o'clock or something in the morning on Wednesday, which is not unreasonable, and we're doing like a 6-hour-ish drive or something like that, that still gets us there, even with a couple of hours break in the middle, that gets us there by like 6. So that's why we really want to put a lot of hours on the road by Tuesday. And so that is why it makes sense for us to cancel the GOG stream. So that is why no Pen and Pixels this coming Tuesday. But, I've been doing that show for 7 years, and I think this is the first time I can remember that I've taken 2 consecutive Tuesdays off. So I'm not too upset about it. I think I've done my bit for King and Country, so to speak. But that's the deal. So very excited for tomorrow. Please join me for the premiere of Expedition for the Mysterious Peaks, and then we'll be moving into August. And as I say, it's going to be a very exciting August. There's going to be a lot of stuff. Yeah, sorry, no Pen and Pixels, no Pen and Pixels. At least not this Tuesday or the following Tuesday. But then I'll be back, and then we'll be doing all that stuff from there. If you liked what you saw and heard, please follow the channel here. Check out the YouTube at !ArvTube, the Discord is !ArvCord, Twitter is !ArvTweets, website arvanelaron.com, financially !ArvShop, !ArvTrayon is the Patreon, but please remember to check out the Speculate Patreon, which is !Speculate. That's really the thing that I'd like you to focus on, because this is a Speculate event tonight. Tomorrow, I'll probably be back to talking about Expedition for the Mysterious Peaks, but it would be lovely if you folks would be able to support the stream by supporting Speculate and by getting some of that behind the scenes stuff. Really digging the idea of a Court of Blades political intrigue driven campaign with these players. I'm sorry Marie couldn't join us, but you've all seen Marie in action on multiple occasions. Marie's great. So having Marie with Premee and Brandon and myself, and then Mike as your dancing master, is going to be pretty sweet. So, and let me again say thank you to the Drakes for their support, and for the awesome video that you're about to see, and for those really awesome overlays. Those are really top-notch, really good stuff. And so we are very fortunate that they are sponsoring us for this. It will be great. You'll start hoarding Speculate podcasts. I see what you did there. So that's going to be the deal with that. I think we are. Oh, sorry. I should mention Icarus for my graphic novel from Athos Arts, Library for Tales and Tomes from the Forbidden Library, and from Alligator Alley, and Grayshade for, again, that new Grayshade novel just published in the last 2 months by Athos Arts, and the Renegade and Heretic will be published by them as well. And there's a Grayshade RPG, which will be done by Alligator Alley, coming out from them, plus a Founder's Coin from Norse Foundry, plus an audiobook from Trent Sparks. So it's going to have a lot of good stuff. I'm very excited for it, and I'll be talking more about some of the aspects of that now that we know that it is funded and we're moving on from there. But we are going to raid today because it's not super late. And let me see who we've got here. I might go here. Let me see what they're doing. Give me just a second here while I make sure. I need to make sure, first of all, that these people are still rolling, and if so, because I don't want to jump over there if they're not. So I'm waiting through stupid commercial, because of course both of the commercials, that's really annoying with the stuff and the thing with the business. There's that, yes, blah blah blah, whatever. Okay, good. Let's see, are they still rolling? It looks like they're still rolling. Hold on a second, let me make sure they're still on. I'm trying to figure out if these people are actually about to log off or not. And I wish they'd just be like, okay, we'll see you soon. So hold on one second. Just bear with me 1 sec. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, I think they're good. Right. Okay, that's good. So, all right, we're going to do that. So raids are very simple. To do a raid, it's very simple. If you are not a sub, you are going to do this, which is the Arvanets have landed, followed by Twitch raid, lowercase Twitch, uppercase R, lowercase AID. If you are a sub of mine, and many more of you are now, after this hype train that we had tonight, it is the Arvanets have landed, and then you've got Arvany Roar, Arvany Hype, Twitch raid, Arvany Roar, Arvany Witch. No, I'm not watching a movie. I was trying to get a sense of whether they were logging off or not, but I don't think they are. And all the Arvanese, when you were brought over automagically to that particular stream, because I just wanted to make sure that they were not logging off for some reason, because that would be strange. I want to thank everyone who made this an awesome stream tonight. Thank you to my wonderful mods, Arudinel, Dragon Spear, Garlic Tofu, Rock God, Shadowed Mage, The Rising Tides, Triffity Mats, of course, Turbo Tango, the best mods in the business. Special thanks tonight to Turbo Tango for doing such a wonderful job GMing, as always. Thank you to my wonderful subscribers, and Patreon supporters, Arudinel, Dragon Spear, Garlic Tofu, Rock God, Shadowed Mage, Rising Tides, Turbo Tango, Nonstop, Crit Twitch, Qualaman, Leia Rake, Light and Passion, Mrs. Dunsel, Prince Justin, and Waymond Wolf. Thank you. And thank you to my viewers, Aklaba, A Service Stop, Big Boss, and Infinity Simplex. Thank you all so much for being awesome, and I am going to see you folks tomorrow, well, slightly later today, I suppose, Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern for the premiere of Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks. And they did log off. Damn it. I knew it. See, this is why I was like, are they? Are they not? Are they? Are they not? And I was like, what the flippity flip? Okay, so that's fine. So I know who we're going to do instead. This is why I wanted to make absolutely sure, because I couldn't tell exactly what they were doing. Okay, great. So now I know, and we're all good. So now we're going to go raid. Thanks, everybody. I will catch all of you lovely folks very soon. Until then, as I always say, please, first of all, support Speculate. Thank you. Support the channel. And everyone, as always, be good to each other. And I'll catch you all soon. Bye for now.
Welcome, dearest retainers, to Court of Blades, and welcome to Valloward, the greatest city in this or any other age. A city where hearts race and swords flash, where intrigue and danger lie around every corner. Centuries ago, celebrated veterans were given title to Valor Isle, a place long abandoned by its first residents. Here, the heroes found ancient secrets, bountiful land, and a fruit bearing oracular gifts. Generations later, 6 families vie for ultimate control of this jewel of the archipelago, each seeking to lead the great dance of houses. A new retinue rises to clash with flashing blades, veiled plots, and powerful magics in pursuit of their house's interests and their own secret ambitions. Speculate presents Valloward, a Court of Blades campaign, starring Premee Mohamed, Marie Bilodeau, Brandon O'Brien, Gregory A. Wilson, and your dancing master, Michael R. Underwood. Be welcome, retainer. Get comfortable, but not too comfortable. It's time for Court of Blades.